What is a witch? We're going to find out today on the Dipshit Files. I'm Mr. Scriptkeeper.
And I'm Mrs. Scriptkeeper.
And that is our question. And we have somebody that can help us find out what that is.
Yes, you do.
It's you.
It's me.
Witch lady.
Hello.
So, in case you were wondering, what is a witch? What's the difference between a witch and Wicca and a heathen and a pagan and an occultist? We're going to try and figure that out. I've always wondered those things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's another Dipshit File. I don't even know who the Dipshit's going to be. It's probably me.
It's probably the church.
All right, so what is a witch? That is our question for today.
Yeah.
And it gets thrown around all the time. I think we all, in Western culture, we kind of know what a witch looks like based on the caricatures of, TV shows and movies and stuff like that.
Well, even that has changed.
Right.
Over the decades, it's changed. So, what I would think of as a witch being in my, late 40s, early 50s is not what someone the age of my son would consider a witch.
Right.
So the aesthetic has changed, the look has changed. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know. This is a really good question, I think.
This is going to be an interesting show because it's become popular. Mm-hmm. It's getting more popular.
Yes, it is.
I wonder why. I wonder if we'll be able to talk about that a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's still pretty maligned as well. Mm-hmm. It's becoming popular, but it's also still very maligned by religion. Mm-hmm. And so it sits in this weird place where it's almost like the religion that can piss your parents off in just the right way. Mm-hmm. And there's another thing about it too, where it seems to be more popular for ladies. Mm-hmm. And there's pushback against that for various reasons, but I've always liked it because it's a empowering kind of religion, or not even religion, just a place to sit.
This is going to be a fun conversation because some consider it a religion,
right? Some
consider it a practice
or spirituality,
yeah.
And some and to a lot of people, it just seems like a dress, like a fad or an aesthetic. Yeah, like it's like grunge or some shit,
right?
Yeah. So let's get to the bottom of that for sure. Okay. There's lots of places to go. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, it's hard to find data on these kind of things because witches aren't going to be like, I'm a witch. It's not an easy question to answer. Mm-hmm. But how many witches are there in the United States, would you say? Well, and how would you even figure out that?
I actually did some looking into that. And I discovered that there's really no way to tell. There's no demographic. There's no way to tell exactly. But what they can do is they can count the number of those that claim Wicca as their religion. And now that Wicca is not really witchcraft.
Right. Witches don't necessarily
not all witches are Wiccan.
Right. Most aren't.
Right. Well, I don't even want to say that because I don't know. But what I did find...
Say it. Fuck them. I'll say it.
Well, but what I did find out is in 1990, there was only 8,000 claimed Wiccans in the U.S. In 1990. In 2008...
Oh, damn, you'd think there'd be more with that many hot topics running around. Sorry.
In 1990, 8,000. In 2008, there were 340,000.
Okay, now we're starting to flow with the malls in America and the hot topic.
Right.
All right.
In 2008, 340,000 Wiccans. Now, that's not exactly witchcraft.
Right.
But it is a pagan spirituality.
Right. And why don't we start there? So why would you say, because you're very involved with a lot of different witches from a lot of different backgrounds that are on the internet today.
All over the U.S., actually all over the world.
Right.
But yeah.
And most of them kind of look at Wiccanism or whatever, Wiccanity, as not as witchcraft, but as they don't necessarily talk about a lot of shit. They don't spend time talking shit about it or whatever, but they don't recognize it as witchcraft. Why?
That is all of these questions. I'm gonna be transparent because a lot of these questions are going to be difficult for me to answer. Not because I'll be answering from my own experience, my own opinion, and my own research. I am not a Wiccan.
Right. So
I have never been a Wiccan. I am very familiar with the Wiccan practice. But, any witches that will be listening, or Wiccans that will be listening to this podcast, I can guarantee you there's going to be disagreement.
Right.
Because everyone practices, they might follow a flow, but everyone practices this in their own way.
Right.
There's many different opinions, and there's many different avenues and different ways. But Wicca, I'm sorry, I totally walked over you.
No, go for it.
Stepped on you. Wicca is a fairly new. Wicca is a new religion, and it's considered a religion or a form of spirituality.
Well, they filled out the paperwork.
And
they wanted to be a religion.
Yes.
They're like, let's make this
And it
legit.
was brought here. It was brought to the U.S. by a gentleman named Gerald Gardner in the 1940s. Okay. And it has morphed and changed over the decades into modern day Wicca that we have today. Now, there are claims that Wicca was brought from Europe, and it was actually an old pagan tradition, an old pagan spirituality, and it's ancient, is what Gerald Gardner said. But he added his own spin on it and added a few things here and there to make it more modern. And
so you can put a trademark on that shit.
It's become what it is today. Now, Gerald Gardner, the one thing that I do deeply appreciate about Wicca is that Wicca opened the door for the rest of the witchcraft community to come forward. Decades later,
right.
Wicca is recognized as an actual religion in the United States now, and it's recognized by the U.S. military.
Right.
So it's made it so that witches can come forward, and it's
but kind of under like a faux witchcraft, though. If you're a witch and you're interested in voodoo, you're not a Wiccan, but if you're in the military, you're like, I guess I'll have a Wiccan chaplain.
See, it's not opened the doors for everyone, but it's slowly opening the doors to the concept of becoming more mainstream.
Well, that's funny because witchcraft is probably one of the oldest kind of forms of religion.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak to witchcraft as a religion. Because to me, religion is organized. There's a book that you follow. There's rules that you follow. There's steps that you take, and there's a leader, and then there's places that you go.
You guys do have the funny hats, though.
You have to go to a certain place to do your religion.
Right.
And so I have a very difficult time looking at witchcraft as a religion.
Right.
I do look at it as a spiritual practice, but it's also a physical practice. So, moving forward in this interview, I'd like to state that I don't even know what to label myself.
Right.
I follow traditional practices, traditional European practices. I follow also, I would say I have a mix of everything. So I've kind of blended my practice with a lot of different things.
Well, you certainly know a lot about this. If you guys don't know, Monique is the center of amarab.com, and there's tons of blogs about all sorts of the witchcraft world, from herbology and the lore and practice and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Monique is very much so. I would call her an expert as a person that doesn't know. She probably wouldn't call herself an expert because she's very humble.
I don't think anybody could become an expert at witchcraft.
Right, for sure.
It's an ever-growing thing.
But you're very interested in this. So, what we want to do today is to kind of close out our spoopy month, even though we're in November, but it's still Samhain. We wanted to kind of figure out from your perspective about this. So I want to start back to Wicca again.
Okay.
So give us kind of, I don't want the whole rundown and stuff like that because it's too much, but what is it about Wicca and witchcraft that are so different? What are a couple things that make them not the same?
In my opinion, witchcraft itself...
Or what arguments are there that you've heard too?
Well, there's a lot of them, but I think witchcraft is actually a practice. To me, it's something that I do. So it's a verb. It's an action.
It's a way that you live.
It's a way that I live.
Okay.
It is also, additionally, a spiritual practice. Witchcraft does require a lot of introspection, a lot of self-awareness, emotional maturity, logic, and reason, which a lot of people would argue
wouldn't be in a religion.
That it wouldn't be in witchcraft itself. And I disagree wholeheartedly after practicing for as long as I have.
Right.
So Wicca is a spirituality. It's a nature-based religion. There's a lot of ceremony.
Are there deities involved?
There are deities.
There aren't deities. There are deities in witchcraft, but
there can be, and some practice without. Some practice through ancestor veneration, so they're not deities. They're actually family members.
Right.
Some people do follow practice where they venerate deity. Some don't even acknowledge the fact that deity exists.
Right.
And even still, some practice with themselves as the deity.
Right.
So it's a
hodgepodge.
It is. Well, it is. And I love that about witchcraft. I love that about this whole world, because the moment somebody gets in there and pulls it all together and creates a format, it becomes organized religion. And that's where you lose the nuance to this. But Wicca, back to Wicca.
Yeah.
Wicca, there's a lot of ceremony in Wicca. And at the very base, from my understanding, it's very nature-based.
Right.
So, and there's not always a witchcraft practice to Wicca. Wicca itself is a religion. They usually follow the cycles of the earth and the seasons. So there's what are called 8 Sabbats, where you've got, if you look at it, it's the wheel of the year. So you've
Solomon,
got, exactly. I personally only acknowledge 4 of those. Mine are Beltane, Yule, Samhain, and sometimes Ostara, which technically is a Wiccan holiday.
Right.
But it's also can be traced back even further. So,
so there's just so much. When you look at Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they're all very organized. The books make it very simple. Everybody can be like, hey, you just moved here from fucking the moon.
Right.
Here's exactly how to follow this.
Organized religion.
Right.
Yes.
This is the witchcraft is the opposite.
Yeah.
It is the least organized.
Right.
But there's tons of stuff though.
There's freedom in religion. I mean, there's freedom in witchcraft.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of freedom.
Experimentation.
Yes, there's a lot of freedom of expression. There's a lot of freedom of thought.
This is probably why a lot of Western women, especially who aren't necessarily like angry at spirituality, but don't like the church for whatever reason. They don't like Christianity for the countless reasons that there are to not like Christianity. And so they're still looking for that spiritual thing. Here's a place to experiment with your own morality, try things out that other people have tried before you. I can see why it's appealing.
It's
and also Harry Potter.
It's appealing, I think, it's appealing to everyone. I mean, I've spoken to men and women about this.
Right.
And it's intriguing. But I do feel, in my opinion, that it is, it's kind of a hub for feminine energy, not essentially just women, but feminine energy itself.
Right.
It doesn't matter what car, what vehicle you're driving on this planet, what body you have. There's feminine energy, because most of the deity, most of the leading deities are feminine. They're goddesses. So that is with Wicca.
Oh yeah, we have more CEOs.
And there's so many. I mean, we can go over. I've got a list here that I can share.
I got a list of CEOs. Let's fucking pull it out. Let's do it. Fine. If we're going to start measuring weenuses, I got a bigger weenus. Wait. Sorry. Okay,
so,
But why would you say that witchcraft is feminine, despite the fact of females being interested? You're saying besides that, it's a feminine energy.
So much of witchcraft, really, it goes down to, the foundation goes to intuition, emotion. It goes into... the
zero empirical studies is what you're saying.
Psychic abilities, and a lot of it has to do with emotion,
right?
And your intuition. I mean, everything from spirit flight to spirit communication to healing. All of those things have a very innate element to them, and that is considered feminine energy because it is not math.
So you're saying all women are wackadoodles?
You're going to make this interview difficult, aren't you?
My pleasure. I've had an interesting day.
Yes,
so throwing it up.
It's been a weird day for sure.
So I'm throwing stuff at you. No, I should clear up, I love science because it is the only way to understand the physical world that we understand. It has its limitations currently because of where we are in science. We're only a few hundred years into it, about the mind and about the nature of reality beyond the material world, which obviously there is. Love is beyond the material world from what we understand, all that stuff.
Right.
I love that people are willing to go out and experiment with the mind and with trying to manipulate the world. And I do get why people want to call people wackadoodles and all that stuff, but I don't want people to stop because if you've ever done a single drug that has hallucinogenic properties, it's like, oh, fuck, I may have met a deity in my head. And it's in your head,
right?
But it's a shared experience because other people can have that experience as well. You know, you try some mescaline and you meet God, and then your buddy meets God on mescaline, and you're like, well, what the fuck? Is mescaline God? No.
Well, you know, something to take into consideration here is just because you saw it, quote unquote, in your head doesn't make it any less real.
Well, everything's in our head.
That's exactly it. Our reality is formed by our perceptions.
Right.
So,
but I look at people in witchcraft, and not necessarily just witchcraft, but people that are not in the mainstream of religion, because there's no more exploration in organized religion.
No. Once you organize it and you write the rules and you put the parameters down,
people are happy to follow.
But it's not just that; it's that they've put the kibosh on exploration.
Yeah.
They've set your limits.
Well, you're the enemy now when you break. I mean, ideology is just that. You're in the in group or you're not. And if you're not, it's not good to be near the people that are
well,
the
see,
in group.
and I've been on the fringe pretty much my whole life, and then of course I was raised in a religious type atmosphere.
Right, very, very religious.
And I was very steeped in it, and I did my best to understand. My brain doesn't operate that way. Or something. It just it couldn't operate under faith alone.
I think we may have talked about this in the past, but Monique was that stereotypical child in a sense that was asking those questions that were uncomfortable in Sunday school to the Sunday school teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
What about bone cancer in babies? Well, that's God's will because why? Etc.
Well, and being
get out of class.
Being a young person, I was inquisitive, but I wanted it to make sense to me. And if it didn't make sense, it was probably a lie. And that's where my brain went. And there was a lot about the religious studies in the Catholic Church and in the Christian chapels that didn't make sense. Some of it really did make sense. It didn't mean I liked it or agreed with it, but it made sense.
Right.
But there was stuff that didn't. And if it doesn't make sense, I reject it. And I've followed through that same pattern. I have not changed. So much of my practice in witchcraft and paganism is changing constantly,
right? Because
I'm learning and I'm growing.
It feels I know this sounds funny to a lot of people that are very scientific minded, but that's part of the attraction to me. Why I like to support that whole world. It's empowering to women and people that like that. But there is some science in a sense to it.
Yes, there is.
Again, it's experimentation and it's exploration where, that's why I'm for, hallucinogenic studies where I want mushrooms to be legal and I want LSD to be legal for pharmaceutical uses and for psychology and for, people that have PTSD.
Right.
There's some evidence that shows that those things are helpful.
Right.
And it's all in the head. And it's all about the good atmosphere and all that stuff. And witchcraft has so much to do with intention and calming, where you're at. Not necessarily always calming. It's using your fury as well, which, I'm not so sure I'm for all that stuff. But I like the experimentation. And I wouldn't want to live in a world where people are like, no, you're not allowed to look into that. We've got this religion that's silly, but we believe in it. And then we got science and it doesn't know what you're talking about, but it knows all this other shit that's fucking absolutely empirical. So fuck off. That just seems foolhardy.
I will tell you, in this day and age, today, witchcraft is growing. The world of witchcraft is growing. The following is growing. And there's an entire group of a mix of eclectic folks from all different ages and all different walks of life that are doing their best to put parameters on it.
Right.
They're doing their best to say, no, you are incapable of doing that. No, you're not allowed to do that. It's happening all over, and it's very frustrating.
I think it's our nature to try and put boxes on everything.
I think it is. Yeah. The moment you put a box around it and say, no, you can't do that because this, it limits it. And you have to be able to explore, which, I've gone through this pathway. My personal experience has taken me from herbalism to understanding communication, unspoken communication, psychology, body language, all the way to emotional maturity. I'm still working on it, but within myself, understanding why I think the way I do, why I react the way that I do. And instead of reacting, examining how I'm feeling in the moment. If you can examine your feelings in the moment when you're experiencing an explosive emotion of some kind, doesn't matter if it's anger or happiness or whatever, if you can stop and not react and actually step out of yourself in your own mind and look at what you're experiencing and how you're reacting to it and why you reacted that way, that's the first step. So when somebody comes to me, and it's happened quite a bit, they want to learn witchcraft. They get very disappointed when I tell them your first step is to know yourself. So you've got to spend some time. It's a whole
lot of work. Yeah.
It is a lot of work.
Because then you're basically at square one. You're like, I'm looking for an answer. And that's what usually religion's like. I don't have to do a lot of work. I just have to follow along, right? But,
anybody can go out and buy a witchcraft book. There are thousands of them. Anyone. Read it. Follow along. Do some spells. Jump in there and start doing stuff. There's no guarantee you're going to get what you're looking for.
Right.
What you're looking for is not found in a book. What you're looking for is found, it's in yourself. And you have to be able to understand yourself first.
See, that sounds too hard, and that's where I think a lot of the stuff
that
leads
away.
To the woo stuff,
exactly.
Because a lot of people, what they have inside of them is crazy deluded shit.
Exactly. Well, that's what they're looking for, and they're looking for validation on their crazy woo woo.
Right.
And which is
like the witches of TikTok. When you see some of that shit, you're like, what are you talking about?
Validation of the woo woo is what leads to parameters and disallowed and organized religion, and that's a problem.
Yes. Let's take all this back real quick.
I'm sorry.
I think the listeners would be. I would be hurting the listeners if they're interested in this topic without delving in with the right questions with you.
Okay.
Because I know you know at least where to point us and all this stuff. Let's just talk about the different kinds of witchcraft that there are real quick.
Oh.
Just let's give a...
Okay.
Because I come from a background where, I don't know my family history super well. I fell into the Jewish practice of Kabbalah.
Right.
And I took to it very well. And, it was some secret thing for a lot of years, they would say and stuff. But it was kind of a Hollywood fad in the 90s or early 2000s. But I found it a little bit different from that. And, it's called Kabbalah to the public or whatever, and then I found this group of people that taught this thing called Kabbalah, and it's the same, but it's the actual Jewish practice, and they flat out say it's magic.
Yes.
And it's basically the stuff that you would learn if you go through Freemasonry.
Right.
If you go through a certain kind of Freemasonry, the Scottish Rite, they will teach you Kabbalah. And is it magic? Not really. When you break it down into it, it's really like a way of looking at the world and how to think, how to use your mind, how to notice things, how to hide things. It's an interesting practice of complexity and whatnot. And so that's one kind of magic. That's completely different from what I think most people think of, like the satanic kind of, ritualistic child, all these mythological kinds of magic. Then there's things like voodoo, which is straight up actually some of those kind of things that you're afraid of, but also not what you think it is.
Right.
And then there's hoodoo, which is different from that. And then you have the...
You're doing very well.
Okay, I'm trying. Then you have the Celtic Druidic tradition, I guess, which is pretty old, and it's what the Europeans were up to before Europe was a thing. And then you have Arabic magic, the Magi, and they have their own flavor
Where
on
you get
stuff.
the gin from,
and and they have their own kind of spirits that they tap into. There's Chinese magic of all kinds.
Yeah.
There's Japanese magic of all kinds. So basically the whole world has...
You're going to find a witch in every walk of life.
Right.
Every religion, every continent, every race. Witchcraft...
African witchcraft there's thousands of kinds of it. Yeah.
Every witchcraft is synonymous with humanity, and it always has been.
Yeah.
To stamp out witchcraft completely is not possible.
It's kind of a fundamental thing what humans try and do. It's like we want to, with everything that we do that's not provable, like with horoscopes, we want to know the future.
Right.
And we want it to come from something that we can calculate. You know, I think this is what we want. We want to be able to manipulate matter with our minds, with our intentions. And people have been obsessed with it. So, you know, I talked about, we have on the far side of one spectrum would be, you know, the Masonic Kabbalah magic and stuff, and things where you would find Aleister Crowley and, you know, the OTO, the Order, whatever, Orient Templis Oriental, well, I can't remember what it's called, but OTO and the Golden Lodge and all these things from the esoteric mystery schools and stuff.
Right.
That's a kind of magic, and they believe in things like sigils and literal spells and
the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Okay, yeah. He was like the Tiger Woods of that shit, I guess. I don't know. And what does that mean? Like, if magic didn't work, how would they even be able to gauge if Aleister Crowley or any of the people that go through the order, are they just making shit up?
Well, I
always wonder that stuff, because I've never been able to make, you know, I do music, and some people will say that there's spells and that and stuff, but I just do music. I don't think of it like that. And
I do, because I watch you.
Well, but it's a cool chemical thing that happens.
I know you don't look at it that way. I think the
more I do, the more fun it is.
I think in order to have this conversation, we have to define terms. To be honest, so what is magic to you?
Right, I don't know.
Right.
So
what is it?
Okay,
what is it?
You give me a good example of give us a baseline of what.
Magic.
Or how about witchcraft? The witchcraft.
Witchcraft. So magic in witchcraft. Okay. To me, magic itself follows natural laws.
Okay.
They just, at its most intriguing, magic follows natural laws in a way that we don't yet understand.
So it's not supernatural.
It's just not. It's the way
we don't know.
It's similar to ESP. Psychic ability. It's similar, and you know, we've all had these experiences. It's part of being human. We've all had the experience at least once in our life where we thought of somebody and they called us. Right. At least once, one time.
Yeah, but
do you know? Of course,
mathematically, I can give you a whole spiel.
I know
you
can. I know you can.
That's probably natural.
We've been married for 14 years, and we've gone around and around quite a bit.
That's not enough for me, but I still get what you're saying.
You've asked me what magic is, and magic is not unnatural. It follows natural laws.
But when people think of magic, they think of lots of different things. Magic would be like, you know, making something that was dead alive again. That I don't believe in.
Once something is dead, the life force is left. There is no bringing it back to life. If it comes back to life, it wasn't dead in the first place.
Right.
That is against the laws of nature.
Right.
And that is not possible.
Okay, well, let's go back to just defining the terms and stuff. So magic to me is manipulating matter with intention.
Okay, yes.
That's kind of what I would say magic is.
That's exactly.
And so,
yes.
But not with, you know, not with fire, not with the material world, but with your mind, with maybe with the hand of material world stuff. Because I see these, you know, potions and things that have gone through time and all the rituals and stuff. But, you know, in Kabbalah, the magic would be your mentality. You know what I mean? So it's really about trying to see the world with the cup overfloweth instead of empty all the time would be the magic of Kabbalah. The magic of voodoo is literally fucking, we're going to put a spell on you and make you do something that we want you to do, or feel pain, or feel...
Potentially, yes.
Right. Okay.
And I can't speak to voodoo because I don't practice voodoo, but I've studied it.
Right.
But I'm not a practitioner, so I've never...
But that's the stereotype
and that
voodoo.
Is the stereotype,
and that's obviously probably not the whole thing. That they probably just don't sit around all day making voodoo dolls and fucking stabbing people.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
No, that seems like a waste of your life.
From my experience, voodoo, the voodoo and hoodoo, the religious practice and the practice itself and everything that... I mean, they come from different areas. Voodoo comes from Africa. Hoodoo comes from Haiti. So, you know, and a lot of it does have to do with the oppression of the African people,
right,
and the religion and the practice and what they've brought together, and formed from that. So what I've found is the majority of it actually is healing. It's a majority, vast majority is beneficial. It's love magic. It's healing magic. It's beneficial to humanity.
That's
of course,
hoodoo and voodoo.
And it has, of course, just like anything else, it's human. So it has a dark side, and I don't care what you look at here. I mean, you can, let's take a spoon as an example. Something as innocuous as a spoon.
A nicely carved spoon.
It's a nice spoon. It's a teaspoon. It comes out of your silverware drawer. We all have one. Okay. You pull that spoon out and it could do so many things. That spoon is not sharp. It's not dangerous. You can't really choke on it. You can eat, you can stir your coffee, you can eat soup. You could also scoop out someone's eyeball.
Right.
You could choke someone with it.
Okay.
If used with enough force, you could actually turn it around, use the handle, and stab someone. The spoon is innocuous. Mm-hmm. The way you use it is what makes it dangerous.
Okay, but hoodoo apparently has like a thing, or voodoo has a thing where it's like if you take this little pin and you shove it in a dude's neck, however you use that, it's meant to like make that guy's neck go ow.
Well, that is I can go into that if you'd like.
Just throwing that out there.
I know. It's sympathetic magic, what they call sympathetic magic, with tag locks. In traditional witchcraft and more the Celtic and European tradition, they call them tag locks. And I think they do in hoodoo and voodoo as well. Sympathetic magic is where you actually create another being. You create something with your own hands, whether it's carving a potato or using clay or sewing a doll.
Right. And poppet, right?
Poppets are European. Doll babies are more what they do, and they're the same thing.
Right.
So when you take hair, fingernails, blood, spit, semen, doesn't matter, skin cells, or a pair of the person's underwear, something that was personal to them, and you attach it to this
fecal matter.
It doesn't matter what it is. It contains their energy. Now, in tradition,
see, that's where the science falls down. But go ahead. For people like us.
Okay, so my brain, what my brain does is what my brain has said is, okay, yeah, I have a hard time with sympathetic magic because how? And then the forensic aspect of my brain says because it contains DNA. The DNA is all over it. If it's fingernails, hair, spit, semen, fecal matter, pair of underwear, their DNA, which is the makeup of their physical body, exists there.
Right, but is it connected to the person and what can happen to them?
And that's where the
question that we can't prove.
That's where
that would be the leap of faith.
Potentially, yes. Yeah. The challenge, the way I overcame that challenge is the human body resonates. The human body has everything resonates. Every bit of matter has a resonance to it. It has a sound.
We're all waveforms. We're all sound waves.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And as we walk through this world with our DNA programming, we have a resonance around us.
We leave little bits of it.
Yes. And our body, our DNA, resonates at a certain frequency. And although it fluctuates and changes, we have a baseline. That baseline is remembered by our DNA. We're learning right now that DNA has memory.
Right.
So to me, in my witchcraft practice, if I were to use sympathetic magic, that's how my brain, the leap is a lot shorter. If I look at the hair that's wrapped around that doll as belonging to that person, containing the DNA of their sequence that actually science has proven belongs to them, and they know it belongs to them. Same thing with their blood wrapped around this doll in sympathetic magic. It also has their frequency and their resonance because that has also been proven by science that we do. Now, the leap is only between, does the DNA still resonate?
Right. With that person. And
it's such a tiny leap. It's
and
no
then
longer.
Can you manipulate it without
Right. And that is a whole other world.
What's interesting about it is that throughout time, I mean, as science gets better and better, more and more people stray towards science or are attracted to science. But throughout history, we've seen very, very intelligent people, very, very certain that this stuff, including in the modern era too. Aleister Crowley is actually a modern person. He's in the 20th century. Yeah. Very much so into knowing that, or believing so much so that they've dedicated their life to this working. Right. And that's very interesting to me. And listening to people, again, be a skeptic and do that. That's
always
the best way to be.
Yeah.
But when you want to delve into something and listen to new things and whatnot, and go in there and try and see what the hell, if the people are being honest, etc. I went and listened to practitioners of like the Aleister Crowley style of magic, and say what you want. You have to call them all liars, as far as which a guy like me would easily do.
Right.
But it's like there's gain in everything human beings do. But I don't like that, and so I want to listen to people in good faith, and so I'd listen to them, and it's like, try it for yourself. It works. You try it for yourself, and I like that. And that's more. I didn't go and do that. I didn't go try it for myself because I'm not interested in those kind of things.
Right.
Just like I don't want to do LSD every day. But I do like the idea that that there is something that you can base all this on, and something you can do. I'm not sure where I'm going with this at this point.
Well,
but
the challenge, I have a very skeptical mind. And I came here already. I mean, anybody who's listening to me, when I say things like I came to this planet, they already know where I'm coming from. They can already assess where my brain, the beliefs that I have when I say this time around, or when I came to this planet.
Right. Yeah.
So there's already an assessment there. And yes, I do have a base to my beliefs. That base, was it taught to me? Well, likely it was. Have I embraced it? Obviously I have. The thing is, I challenged my belief system over and over and over again until I came to a platform that made sense to me. And that platform that I have is mine. And it's a mix of a lot of things.
Right.
So
it does a disservice to call it a specific thing,
right?
Like witchcraft.
I wouldn't even know what to call it. Right. So
that was a long way of me saying I'm glad people are doing it. I guess I'm not sure what my point was there, but I'm glad people are willing to try it. And I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, "Fucking you idiot!" You know? I do think that there's so many people in that world that do come across as straight up idiots, where it's like, credulity is a natural part of the human thing. We're all credulous in some way. It's our fucking responsibility to tap that shit out when it's dangerous. And really at all times. I mean, living in reality is the point, right? I guess.
Right.
But at the same time, just because it can't be scientifically tested in the peer-reviewed, double-blind kind of way that we like for science, which even some material things can't be done that way, it's still valuable to do the experiments and get close. But
well, I think as soon as we can evaluate, double-blind test love.
I know, right? That's what I mean.
Then we all know that love exists. Right. We all know it exists in different varying degrees and different ways. We don't have scientific proof that it exists, but we all know it because we've experienced it from birth.
We're just not able to come up with a way to test it.
Exactly.
And
I think we will. But being able to, I do. I mean, eventually, maybe in my lifetime, that would be rad.
I'm just like you. I don't believe in supernatural because that just means that nature has a whole other set of laws. And it's like, no, I think that nature's nature. So if there are these things, like you were saying, like ESP or being able to manipulate matter with intention, that would have to be natural, and it would have to fit somewhere in the physics of the universe.
But see, and that's just it. I learned so much about my personal practice studying what I could get my hands on with physics.
Quantum physics
and dark matter.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it's way over my head. I don't like things when they're over my head. I want to understand them. So I will stop what I'm doing for months in order to pursue this random passion of quantum physics so I can get an understanding. Of course, I'm not going to become an expert. Never. Or even, I won't even become a novice. But what I'm trying to understand is a question, get an answer to the closest I can get of a question that I have in my own brain that applies to my life and my practice.
Well, like a layman would look at something like string theory, where you have two pieces of the same thing in the universe that are intricately connected, trillions of light years away from each other, or whatever it might be. Where they move at the same time and it's simultaneous, the same thing. You're like, well, fucking, that's how we want a voodoo doll to work.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, well, fuck.
Right.
But that's a layman. So that's just kind of extrapolating from two little data points that
exactly. Right.
Correlation doesn't equal causation.
And, I did look into that quite a bit. And no, it doesn't exactly match. It doesn't. But the theory does. And that's where we're at.
It's not, it shouldn't. The goal is not to dismiss it. It's just to not take those big leaps of faith where it's like, now I've just decided it's close enough for me. I'm just all in. And that's what religion is, and that's what I think a lot of the woo-woo is too.
But that's a problem, though, because so much of witchcraft practice, not the religion, but in practice, you have to have faith in yourself. But before you can have faith in yourself and your capabilities, you have to know yourself.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a very intricate...
Which is a lifelong thing.
It is.
So there shouldn't be any 20-year-old witches on TikTok, is what you're saying.
No.
Teaching.
No, really, there shouldn't. And you never know. There might be a prodigy. There's
an Aleister Crowley in there.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. There might be.
Right.
But if they're getting pissed off because somebody's wearing the wrong color dress, they're not the person that you think they are, or that they say they are.
Right.
Okay. So the thing here is, when it comes to knowing yourself and then trusting yourself, you have to know yourself first before you can trust yourself. You can't just say, well, I trust myself because I'm me. And, I'm fine the way I am. Fuck that. No, you're not. You're not okay the way you are. You never are.
Right.
You need to improve yourself every day. So, and I know that statement right there is going to piss witches off all over the United States.
Well, you've already been part of that conversation many a time. So.
I have. And...
Ooh. I got a question for you. Since it's just Halloween, I don't want to derail your thought.
No, it's all right.
Do you get pissed when people appropriate your culture when they wear witches' outfits when they're not witches all year?
No.
Just kidding. That was a joke.
No, I don't.
That was going off here at one point.
No, I don't actually.
Should you be? I don't think.
There's a part of me that gets upset about the view of the witch, the aesthetic of the witch, the old aesthetic, because it's embracing violence and it's embracing oppression. It's an embracing the judgment and the smashing of the smart, intelligent healer, the woman who was caring and loving, and that brutality they went through.
Yeah.
So there is part of me that gets upset about that, but there's also a large amount of my brain that understands that was many, many, many hundreds of years ago.
Right.
Additionally, we don't do that anymore. Not in
the West.
West. And additionally, most people are just ignorant. And not in a bad way. They just have never spent the time to think about it. They've never explored it. And they're just moving forward. And I don't blame them.
Okay.
They don't know.
Well, let's for people that
I don't get mad about it.
For people that might be not interested in being witch ever in their life, not really a fan of it, maybe very Christian, who knows? Let's give them some things. Let's talk about maybe some of the fallacies that are out there about witchcraft. What would you say, knowing the giant witch community that you know, how many of them are really into what you would consider like blood, magic, or the things that people are scared about, where they're maybe sacrificing the chitrons here and there?
To the best of my knowledge, there is no human sacrifice unless you're sacrificing of yourself.
Okay, so 0% is what you're saying on the human sacrifice.
First of all, I'd like to, again, define terms. A sacrifice is only a sacrifice if you give of yourself. Period. There is no sacrifice ever. I don't care what it is. Okay, let me just put it this way. If you've got to pay your electric bill and you don't have enough money in the bank, but you have your grandmother's heirloom wedding ring that you can hawk to get the money to pay your electric bill, and it means a lot to you, and you really don't want to do this, but you know you need electricity.
Fuck
and
grandma.
You're like, fuck, okay, what am I going to do? And then you force yourself to take it down and hawk it, and you're in tears, but you have the money to pay your electricity bill to make sure that your pipes don't freeze. That is sacrifice.
Okay.
Going to your neighbor's house and borrowing money is not. Okay? So when it comes to sacrifice in witchcraft, drawing your own blood, going through the pain, going one drop of blood in something, and not all witches practice blood magic. It's not a common thing.
I think we'd like to know, give us a rough estimate. 1 in 10?
I would say it's less than that.
1 in 100?
Probably closer to that, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a common practice anymore because it's old world magic.
Right.
It's old world practice, so it's not something a lot of people do. And when they talk about sacrifice, and then they're sacrificing babies, unless it's your baby, it's not a sacrifice, and it's less of a sacrifice for you to sacrifice your baby
because you're not the baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's no sacrifice in life itself unless it's your own.
That's really well said.
Okay.
Well said.
Sorry, I stopped talking about sacrifice.
But we live in a country, and really a group of countries that believe that the elites of the world, which seem like cunts to me too, are doing these kind of things where it's blood magic and
if they are and they're sacrificing
kind of
somebody else, they're pretending.
Right. Okay. When I looked into it for Time Suck multiple times. Of course, the information is probably not going to be out there as much if it's something that's a high level, blah, blah, blah. But it's really, really obvious that it's a lot of hoaxes that are done by not high up people that are, I think at one point we talked about Todd's blog was the Ninth Circle cult,
right.
Which was behind a lot of the European version of QAnon. Okay, so there's very few people practice. What percentage of witches would you say in your circle, just a rough estimate, are using witchcraft in any way to be a negative force in the world? Like going after people with cursing? I know it happens. Okay,
so to elaborate on that question, first of all, how many are powerful enough to make a change with a curse?
I don't know. How do you get to be powerful?
It takes...
Got to go to Hogwarts, get that degree.
No, it takes knowing yourself. It takes experiences, life experiences. It takes emotional intelligence.
Well, knowing yourself is like 1 in 1,000 people figure out how to get that shit happening.
Right. So, if somebody throws a curse at somebody and it comes true, that was probably interesting little anomaly, but it doesn't mean the next one's going to work, first of all. Second of all, how many witches are doing this? I don't know. Right. I have a feeling there's so many pissed off 20-somethings out there. There's probably a lot of it going on. Yeah. But it's probably falling flat on its face.
Is that why politics sucks? Because the Illuminati are good at it and they're always just cursing each other and everything fucking falls apart all the time?
I don't even think the Illuminati exists. But,
I don't either. Just saying, and for hypothetical purposes. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, okay, so first of all, curses. Mm-hmm. Okay. I personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I see nothing wrong with curses.
Okay.
I really don't.
I'll put a spell on you.
The thing is, there's a bunch of witches out there that would consider any type of curse black magic.
Okay.
Okay. I don't look at magic I look at it like the spoon. The spoon can be good or it can scoop your eye out.
Okay. It can be a dark spoon.
This practice it just is. Okay. How you use the practice makes it good or bad. Now, in my opinion, I think organized religion is what states what's good and evil.
Right. They just decide for you what those things are.
Right.
But that's because,
you would never, and this pertains to curses, so please, it pertains to curses, so please follow it. Bear with me and follow along.
I'll try not to interrupt as much as possible.
Thank you. So would you, another question. You see a lion with her babies, her cubs. Okay, a lioness out there with her cubs. And she goes after the gazelle. And she gets the gazelle, who also has babies. The babies are over there waiting for her in the brush.
Right.
And the lioness attacks the gazelle, kills the gazelle, and drags it back to feed her babies. Would you call that lioness evil?
No.
Why?
Because it's part of the nature
cycle,
the cycle of life.
Exactly. Okay.
If they could talk to each other, maybe.
Right.
It's
but
I'm going to kill you for your kid.
You would never consider the lioness evil. It's just natural. Right? So human beings, we're told what's good and bad. And there's a bunch of us out there that have to be told these things. Right. There's a whole group of people that are like, I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know stabbing that guy in the neck was bad.
My bad.
Because of their personality archetype. Mm-hmm. But there is a large, vast number of individuals that live by a moral code and have their own set of ethics, and they're pretty similar.
Right.
Now, whether that's been programmed by religion or if it's just innate to humanity, I don't know. A lot of us are empathetic enough to know that, ouch, that hurts me. It's probably going to hurt them.
Yeah. Human beings figure out real quick that you have to cooperate with each other to survive. And if you don't, you get ostracized, and that makes it so you won't cooperate or survive as long.
Now, the way I look at curses is I look at it the way I guess the way that I interact with communication. When I go out into public and I meet somebody for the first time, and they're nice, I'm going to be nice. Okay? If they're rude to me, I'm probably going to let it go because I don't know them, and they don't mean anything to me. So whatever. Sorry, you're having a bad day, dude. If I get to know this person and they're nice over a long period of time and we develop a relationship, and then all of a sudden they fuck me over, that hurt me, and I don't trust them anymore.
Right.
Okay? That will elicit a response from me. It's going to elicit a response from me because there was trust there. Something is broken.
Right.
So when someone fucks me over and the curse comes in, it's going to be the same thing. There's always a reason behind it. Now, will it work? I don't know.
Right.
Will my communication with that individual, hey, you hurt me, you fucked me over, I don't trust you anymore, is that going to change their behavior? I don't know.
Right.
It's entirely up to them. That's how I look at cursing. It's the same type of thing.
I wonder if cursing is also valuable for whether or not it works or not, whether it's just counting hits and not counting misses or whatever. I wonder if it's valuable for the person that's doing it, just like painting would be, just like doing exercise would be.
Exactly. That is something that I take into consideration too. A lot of individuals get a release from that.
Yeah.
It allows them to work through their grief.
Yeah, burning somebody's name that really fucked you over at work or some shit. I mean, whatever.
Or symbolic.
Seems,
so many people will end a relationship and they'll take things, the pictures and the letters and the little trinkets, and they go outside and they burn it. Not because they're witches.
Right.
But because it's symbolic of the ending of something.
See, and that to me is such a valuable thing, because we, regardless of whether or not it works in the world as far as, can we move a mountain with our minds or whatever, doing that for our own minds is like the trick to mental health. There's all these little tools that we have to figure out for ourselves that are individualized that help us stay, whatever you want to call sane or grounded or get close to serene or whatever the fuck we're trying to do. And yeah, I mean, when somebody's like, I'm going to burn that because I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I think some people are like, oh, that's juvenile. I just deal with it. It's like, no, it's
symbolic.
That's for sure. Just like when you look at, you can say what you want to about the mystery schools and the Kabbalah and the Freemasons and all that stuff, but there's symbolism of death and rebirth in the ritual process of those societies. That shit's very powerful to the subconscious.
I was just going to say, the subconscious doesn't react and doesn't process the same way the conscious mind does.
Doesn't seem to.
The conscious mind is known at this point that we understand it to process in visual and sensory, auditory, those types of terms. It's very linear. The subconscious mind processes and understands through symbology and symbolism. And it's the hidden aspect of things. It's symbolic. You want to talk to your subconscious mind, do it through symbols. Your brain gives you dreams and talks to you through dreams, your subconscious mind.
Right.
And that's where dream interpretation comes from, because it's symbolic.
Which is a whole other
realm
of
other
shit
thing
that nobody knows all that much about.
But so much of programming quote unquote programming, or understanding your subconscious reaction to things, or programming a future reaction to something subconsciously, is through symbols. And that's where sigils come in.
I really like sigils. As an artist, I've always appreciated putting energy into and hidden messages kind of into art and into words and into logos and things like that. And I see the value in that. And it, as far as magic, you don't know, but people know that certain colors make people hungry, or make them mad, or make them feel safe, or make them feel tired, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and why is that, though?
Right.
And why is it across the board that way? Doesn't matter what part of the world you're from.
Right.
It's a human thing.
Yeah.
So why does it work that way? They don't really know.
Right. But this is kind of the look into that, and that's why I've always found, I guess for lack of a better term, mystery schools interesting, because it does seem that they've spent a lot of time looking into what the hell these things do.
Right.
Like when you look at Kabbalah, and I might be talking out of church with this, they believe the actual ancient letters of Hebrew are magic.
Yes.
And there is a cool vibe to them that is undeniable to me.
They're sigils within themselves.
That's exactly what they're meant to be, yeah. And it's funny just how... But wait, before we get that, what is a sigil? We should maybe say that.
Oh, okay.
In case people are like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
A sigil basically is a symbol that carries a thought form, an intention.
What's a famous sigil?
Oh, goodness. Every friggin'
Corporate
logo,
yeah.
Every corporate logo that you've ever seen is a sigil of some kind.
Right. They're more complicated in the past. Runes would be considered sigils too, wouldn't
For them,
they?
yeah, kind of so. Yeah, they're symbolic. They're images that carry a story,
right?
Which is what a sigil is.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because the modern person is going through a world that the ancient person would be fucking terrified by. Like having eyeballs everywhere on the billboards, people's eyes, and having these big gaudy like logos, the big arches of McDonald's, and the big fucking chevron of Chevron and all these things. That would have scared the shit out of me.
Absolutely.
in a lot of ways, because that was kind of what some of that's meant to be. But then marketing plays off of that, like the eyeballs on a billboard are meant to make you go, what the fuck? Oh,
right.
Yeah, fucking $2 off. Fuck yeah.
Well, you can actually create your own sigil. It's a very, very simple thing. You could take something like the word happiness. So let's
do a homework assignment. Let's do it. Let's make a sigil.
So
you guys get your paper and pencil out.
And we're going to use the emotion happiness, because everybody loves happiness. Although happiness by itself has a different definition for everyone. Some people are going to think money. Some people are going to think babies. Some people are going to think a new car. What does happiness mean for you? So maybe whatever it might be. So you think of the word happiness and you attach an emotion to that word. You know what happiness feels like. To dig a little deeper, what would make you happiest right now?
I can't say on the air. Anyway.
Okay, so you're going to write on a piece of paper the word happiness.
Happiness?
Okay. Or...
I'm doing that right now.
Okay, let's just do happiness, because it's going to be a little bit easier.
Okay.
Okay? Now, in your mind's eye, picture what happiness looks like. What does it feel like? And you're looking at that word, and you're pushing all of that energy into that word. Now, what you want to do is you want to take all of the vowels out of it. So the A, the I, the E, cross them out. Put an X through them.
Done.
Okay. Every vowel. Now, every repeating consonant. Cross those out.
There's an extra P and an extra S.
Okay, what are you left with?
I'm left with an H, a P, an N, and an S.
All right, so 4 letters. Okay.
It's like H penis.
So this is where your sigil begins. Now, many people will draw with this, but the easiest way is to take those letters and you write them below the original word, H, P, N, S, and now start doodling with those words. Or you can even start writing one over the other. So you've got an H. Now, depending on if you wrote a lowercase h or an uppercase h, maybe the tall part of the lowercase h is part of the N. So you have an H, and with a little hump to the right, and then you can put a hump to the left for the N. So there's your H in the N. At the very top, maybe you put another hump for the P. And then maybe you somehow fit the S around it. Okay? Once you get something that feels good or looks good aesthetically to you,
that's a sigil.
That's it. Put a circle around it.
Yeah.
Enclose the energy of that thought form that you put into that word while you were doodling. Put it in a circle. You have yourself a sigil. Now, as long as you were in the process of making the sigil and putting everything together, you're holding on to that thought of happiness. What you've just done, of course, is you've done magic.
You've made art with intent. What
they've called magic. Now, that sigil isn't going to work for anybody but you, because it's your energy that went into it. And while you were making it, you were programming with a symbol your subconscious mind to invoke that emotion when you look at that picture that you just drew. And that sigil will always bring that emotion up. The more you use it, the stronger it's going to get.
You want to know what I just did?
You probably drew a big dick on your paper.
No, I put in the word profit, and then I just put it together, just kind of whatever, and the Bank of America symbol like naturally showed up. And I was like, what the fuck? How'd that happen?
It did not.
It did. It was amazing. I'm blown away. It actually formed on the paper.
It did not.
Illuminati. So,
so husband.
Yes, wife.
This is, I was just to our listeners, this is the kind of stuff I'm doing my best to be a practicing witch, and he'll come by with some smart ass thing like that, and it's so funny.
I'm doing my best to be a,
I know,
son of a bitch and contrarian to all.
I know it.
A fun sucking cunt to all that I meet.
But it's, anyways.
Well, that's our look into sigils. I feel like they got,
it's very simple. The concept is very simple. It just takes focus and a little bit of art. And
I made one while I was sitting here.
Yeah, the mysticism of sigils, gone.
So there you go. There's a sigil.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of things I want to still talk about in this here witchcraft episode.
Right.
I do want to go back to like the drastic differences, because it fascinates me, because of, when you listen to people so flippantly discuss witchcraft or witches and burn the witches and, shouldn't leave a witch alive and stuff. It's like, which ones? All of them?
Right.
So the practicers of Kabbalah and voodoo and Druidism and all these different things.
Well, it's speaking from ignorance. It's just like all religious people should die.
Right.
All Christians. Okay, are you talking about the Protestants? Are you talking about the evangelicals? Or it's the same kind of thing. Although the Christianity is way more limited than witchcraft.
The thing is with Christianity is it's a straight up ideology.
I know.
There's no room for any.
Right.
I mean, they're tolerant of others at best. That's the point of them, and that's a whole nother thing. With witchcraft, it's like. Nothing can fit into Christianity because it's the opposite of their...
Well,
even though they practice a form of witchcraft themselves. The Pope is absolutely... He's doing all these sorts of rituals that are pagan.
There's a whole sect of witches out there. They call themselves... there's secular witches and there's religious witches. There's Christian witches. There's Catholic witches. Seriously.
I know that's...
And I could never be a Christian or Catholic witch, because to me, and it's just me, my practice would not be real to me, because to me, it's those people that killed the witches to begin with. So why would you use their book?
Right.
That says you're a horrible human.
Only in a couple places,
except for... I know. And that's... I'd like to cover that too, because I have some interesting things that I found. The only thing that I would ever use, and I have used, is the Psalms, the Book of Psalms. And that's because the Book of Psalms are spells within themselves.
Oh, shit. Don't tell that to everyone.
But they are.
Oh, my.
And they've been used that way for thousands of years. They really have. Okay, so if you're scared, you're a Christian, right? You're in church, and you're having a really, really scary moment. What are you told to say? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. Okay. That's a protection chant.
Fair.
Okay? It's
fair.
That's all of the Book of Psalms. So, and there's curses.
Did we open up a can of worms with this one or what?
Sorry.
I love it. People need to talk about this shit. I mean, we're we're silly. We're at each other's throats over like bathrooms and hair colors and
I know
stupid shit that doesn't make any sense at this point.
Well, back to the kinds of witches. There are so many kinds of witches. There really are. Every faith, every race, every continent. There is a group of them, and sometimes many of them.
Even sometimes animals.
God damn it. God damn it.
I'm sorry. So we are in a program called SKATCAST Presents, just so you know.
I'm gonna give you a list right here. Okay?
Yes.
I wrote a list down. Now, I could go into description, but I'm not going to for the sake of time. But here is
I ain't going anywhere. Let's just do it.
This is just, okay, but this is off the top of my head. Okay. There's traditional witch.
Witchcraft, okay.
Hedge witch, kitchen witch, eclectic witch, ceremonial witch, hereditary, elemental, green, sea or water, cosmic, secular, a coven, a witch's coven, a coven type witch, solitary witch, which is more, solitary.
Right.
A gray or neutral witch. There's healers.
Or Gandalf.
There's Dianic. There's Strega. There's Sabbatic.
Jeez.
Wicca. Chaos. Hoodoo. Voodoo. Cider. And that's just off the top of my head when I was sitting here.
Okay.
There are so many. So many. So cider is Nordic or Icelandic, or what they call the vulva.
Okay, nice.
Okay. That's the term for a witch in a Nordic witch. And there's voodoo from Haiti, hoodoo from Africa, chaos witchcraft, which basically originated in 1970s era, where people were becoming more eclectic.
This is when they started to combine things from India. This is like the Aleister Crowley aftermath stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Strega is more of an Italian aspect. The gray,
so lots of pasta. Okay.
Dianic is there's a whole sect of Dianic witches.
And they just like Michael Jackson's "Dirty Diana," and that's all they do is listen to that song.
Yes, they do.
Okay. I'm nailing this shit.
You are. Good job. So there's secular witches that do not worship a deity at all. Universal knowledge, universal energy is where they serve.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many different kinds. And I don't like to claim a title or a term or terminology or label or anything like that, because I don't fucking know what I am.
Right.
Most would look at me and say that I am an eclectic chaos witch with traditional background.
No, they wouldn't. Most people would have no idea what the fuck those
other
are.
Witches.
Okay, yeah.
And those are the things that they've told me I am. And of course, me being the contrarian that I am, I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
I absolutely
reject your reality and replace it with my own.
Okay. So we have kind of a difference now between witchcraft and Wicca.
Yes.
Wicca is more of a religion. It doesn't really have any spells or any kind of anything.
No. Wicca is a religion. They can practice witchcraft.
And they have some... right, of course. And they have deities. Witches don't require deities, but can have deities.
Witchcraft it's usually the god and the goddess. It's the masculine and feminine. Yeah.
Right. And so basically every culture has been trying to manipulate matter with their intentions of their mind.
Yeah.
And
since the dawning of time.
Yeah. And so it looks, and then so they have these names like druids and stuff like that. So now we've got an idea between the difference of witchcraft, Wicca. Now the heathen, the pagan, and the occult. Those are also words that get thrown all together, and they all have kind of, they all touch each other or overlap, but what's the difference between a heathen and a pagan? Okay,
so this one is very difficult to answer because they're nearly identical.
Okay, these are Christian terms, I'm sure,
and they are.
Okay.
They were
Judeo-Christian, I will say. The Jews had something to do with this too.
Those terms were developed by Christian. Yes, they were, but essentially, a heathen is an individual that mostly doesn't venerate a deity. They don't worship, they don't acknowledge a deity. Mostly, not all of them. Pagans, most of them
have a deity.
Many.
Yeah.
It's polytheistic.
Yeah.
And, most of them are, but not all of them. In my studies, what I found is... Okay, now bear with me, and I'm going to do my best to explain this. For individuals that live on this planet that truly believe that their life exists on this planet, it exists on this plane, and they react to their life on this plane in the life that they're living with no guarantee that there's anything after, those are heathens.
Okay.
And they live in the moment. There's no guarantee that anything is going to happen after. They do or don't venerate a deity. Most of them don't.
Right.
They are earth.
I feel like I might be a heathen a little bit.
They're earth. What's the word I'm looking for?
Hippies?
No, they live here with no expectation.
Hippies.
Okay? They enjoy their life for what it is. Now, pagans come here. Let's see. They would live their life with the assistance of the other world.
Okay, so they're trying to manipulate the world and change it. And the heathens are just taking it as it is. That's
a reach, but that's kind of, yes. To put it simply, yes. There's a lot more to it than that. But you've got your pagans with their many gods or no gods, but their mindset is that they've come here as a stopover, and there's more to come. Heathens, and this is my interpretation of the studying that I've done, heathens have come here because this is the place to be. And there might be something, maybe, but it doesn't matter. So they're living their life not under a burden.
Okay.
Whereas you have pagans that potentially could be living under a burden because this is just a stopover.
Well, because
does that make sense?
I think so, because pagans do end up having likely some sort of belief system.
Yes,
because there's so many different pagan belief systems, and that's
you can't.
So heathens might not really have an ideology. Pagans could possibly or likely will have an ideology.
Likely, okay. Yes. The heathens are more. And what I'm doing is I'm putting a label on something that is not all-encompassing. So as long as everyone who's listening knows that I am not being all-inclusive.
Right. Hashtag not all heathens.
Exactly. What I'm trying to do for my own brain, what I've tried to do over the years, is gain a basic understanding. Because there's got to be a baseline that may or may not be constant throughout the whole thing, but there is a majority in there. And that's what I found.
Love
it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have an idea now. A witch could be one of 1,000 different kinds of humans that wants to change matter through intention and possibly through spells and ritual. A Wiccan is a religious practice that's really pretty new and that is based around nature, nature deities, and could lead to witchcraft. But possibly not.
But may not.
A heathen is someone who's just fucking around, having a good old time.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a shit about the morrow or the yesteryear.
Potentially, yes.
But probably not an ideology.
Right.
And then a pagan is someone that could fall into many of the old religions, many of the old ideologies, their own local ideologies, all those kind of things. Now that leads us to a cult. And I know that word means hidden.
Yes.
That's all that means.
Yes.
It gets a lot of scary stuff, and it gets roped into witchcraft. But a cult isn't necessarily just witchcraft, is it?
No. Occultism is the study of the hidden aspects of humanity and the mysteries of our universe, mysteries of life.
According to whom?
This is according to
assholes hiding shit from the rest of us.
Everyone who's ever written about it.
Right.
Okay. Now, from my experience, when I went into this, way back when, my idea of the occult when I started was that I wanted to know the shit that they were hiding. I wanted to know the secrets. And then as I've moved forward and read these things, I'm sure there's a fuck ton out there that I'm unaware of.
Right.
But as I move forward, the more I learn, the more I find the best way to hide something is in plain sight.
Right.
And I found it is. Don't hide it. hide it in plain sight, make it so that it's unseeable. And so what I found is through my study of the occult is that everything I was looking for, that I'm digging, and I'm moving on this linear pattern that's taking me year after year after decade, when I finally realized everything I was looking for was actually in the very first fucking book I read.
Right.
Because I did not have the mindset, the perception, or the life experiences, or my understanding of symbology. I didn't have the thought processes to process their words the way they needed to be.
Right.
To understand what they were saying.
That's like reading James Joyce. Where you're
Is
like,
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You read James Joyce and you're like, what the fuck did that guy just say?
Okay.
And then you get smarter and older. And you're like, holy fuck, I think I cracked the code onto 2 sentences from all of that. I don't know.
Now I'm gonna actually go out on a limb.
Okay.
And say a lot of the Bible, is
secret shit.
Is occult. There's a lot of occult symbology in there. There's a way you can read it so that you have to be able to read it with a specific mindset. Now, maybe
Bible code. Remember that shit.
Remember
that book? There was a couple books out called the Bible Code, where when you break down the actual Hebrew.
Okay, yeah, but that was a movie.
No.
Oh,
no. What I'm talking about was it was a book. It's a religious study on a religious book.
Okay.
And it's an attempt to put science on a religious book, which is never good. And really, you can find symbology if you use certain pattern stuff with Moby Dick and shit, and you can find secret.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a mindset, a way to process words. There's reading between the lines. There's understanding the unspoken portion of the narrative.
Some of the allegories are meant to trigger some esoteric understanding.
And it's not all of the Bible, or I just haven't gotten there yet. I just know there's certain aspects. That's where I found the Psalms. Yeah. That's where I picked up on the Psalm stuff.
I think it's interesting that there's so much witchcraft in the religions that don't like.
I can't believe the Pope is walking down with his
burning incense.
Yeah, they burn the same incense I do.
Right.
It's very, very interesting.
I love it. We've sold products to the Vatican as well from MRB.
Yes, we have.
Awesome.
That was an interesting experience. The other part is I will meditate and create with intention. Maybe a tea, or I'll sew a puppet together, or a little pillow with herbs in it, and give it to somebody to keep bad dreams away or something. And what I'm doing, the whole process is identical to prayer.
Right, it is.
It's no different. It's just I'm putting my intention into it because I see myself as a reflection of the universe and the creator himself, herself, itself, whatever it is.
Right.
So basically,
the big programmer.
I'm using my energy within instead of praying to a God to do the work for me. Sorry, in my opinion, if there was a God, that person's sick for a reason, and it was his will to make that happen. So who the fuck are you to make him change his mind?
Right.
And that's how I see the world. So I can't practice religion because I'm a fucking heathen, maybe. I don't know, or a pagan. I don't know. But what I can see is that there is no God. There is only a neutral source. Doesn't give a fuck about anyone in particular. It really doesn't care.
It doesn't seem to care.
It just is.
That's a very that's a deist perspective of the universe, of a God, a creator that created everything, but then walked away and said, "Nah."
Well, I don't believe that there is. I don't believe the creator, whatever, the energy that created life. I don't think it's either good or bad. I don't think it likes us. I don't think it hates. I think it's a different.
You don't think it's looking into how you're going to get a job promotion later? You don't think so?
I really don't think any of that matters. I think it's up to us to make those changes.
What a shattering of the paradigm you've done.
If it is to be, it is up to me. Remember that cheesy fucking statement? Well, I live by that.
That's a pretty good statement.
And so, if I want to facilitate change in myself first, I have to do it. If I want to facilitate any type of change in my environment, I need to get off my ass and clean my house. If I want to facilitate a change in my employment, I got to go out there and I got to put out those applications and I have to dress up my resume. Mm-hmm. But I also need to do it with intention, with a focus, because that's where that change comes in. We are all, by just being human, we're all magicians, we're all witches in our own right. And nobody realizes that. I don't know how many times, it's written all over the place. If you want to change, if you're having a bad day, and you want to change the day that you're having, and you want to change your quote unquote luck, you got to change your attitude. Mm-hmm. That's intention, all by itself. So
that's when we started talking about MRB, you know, and I come from that skeptical, I would have joined every skeptic society in the world kind of thing. That's what intrigued me the most and made me want to be a part of it the most, was that to be any kind of actual practicing anything in this world amongst the respectable folk, whatever that means and stuff, that you guys, there's like self-appointed experts and then other people, you know, respecting them and stuff. A lot of people would be getting letters from people that want to say, I want to become a witch, and and it's right away they're like, okay, well, you have to do a lot of personal work. You have to know yourself. And then they kind of explain like what that is. Because if you delve into these, because it's really a lot of psychological stuff, it's in your mind. And it's discipline of the mind is what a lot of this is described as, especially the Aleister Crowley side and the Kabbalah side and stuff. And so I like it because there's very few things. You don't need to discipline your mind in most religions. It doesn't matter. There's already you just
follow the dots.
Show up, don't do these things, whatever. You'll be fine. Say some little things here and there. And so this is actually forcing you, it's like before you can even pretend to do any of these things, you got to fucking figure it out or you're fucked, is what the warning is from these people. And I think that's more interesting. It's more...
Well, that's basically what I've
valuable
shared.
To people, even if it doesn't work, even if they never cast a spell or you know, blah, blah, blah. To get to that point, they're like, well, I had to face this problem I had in my life, or this memory I had, and I had to face my monster inside of me and stuff, and I overcame that. It's like, well, that's what fucking going to a shrink is for. You know, so in a lot of ways, I think maybe people are leaning towards witchcraft for an easy way to get back at people, and but they're finding...
It's the hardest fucking thing out there.
They're finding stoicism, and they're finding, you know, some Carl Jung.
in order to have any effect or change on your environment or the energy around you, you have to clean off your front porch first. You have to clean up your own bullshit. Because, you know... You can't go in and do the dishes. I keep using analogies, but this is how my brain works. But you can't go in and to do the dishes and expect a clean kitchen and not, you know, mop the floor. You can't throw your dishes covered with chunks of food in the dishwasher and literally, you know, pouring soup and shit in the bottom. You have to rinse your dishes off first before you put them in the dishwasher for them to be clean.
I'm learning all sorts of new things today.
You cannot throw all of those dishes with all the food stuck on there, dried, and all the bullshit that's been there for fucking years. You cannot put that in the dishwasher, run it through a cycle, and expect that stuff to become clean.
You need a better dishwasher.
You have to do the work. No, you have to do the work before you get the final result. You have to. That work has to be done, and the expectation needs to be set that in order to facilitate change, you have to change yourself first, because you cannot be a fucking chaotic mess and expect a change in your environment. It doesn't work that way, because 9 times out of 10, if you're a chaotic mess, you're fucking probably causing the problems.
Right.
You know? So as soon as you can work through your own bullshit, most of your issues, your problems will fall away. Now, you will have a bunch more to deal with, and you'll have a bunch more new ones, because you will have moved ahead in your understanding of yourself and the world that you live in, and you're going to see problems that were always there, but you didn't even know they were there, because you weren't smart enough to know that they were there.
Right.
Or you weren't aware enough to know that they were there. And that is the path. That's the path you're going to have to follow for the rest of your life. However, the further you follow and the deeper you go, the less you know, the less happy you are, but the more fulfilling life is. Because I don't want to say the less happier you are. That's not true. The happiness is greater and stronger and more fulfilling, and the darkness is darker and deeper. It's just a more of a broad experience. So the more you move forward in knowing yourself, knowing your craft, and experiencing this world, your emotional reaction, I guess, your emotional experiences, your ability to experience emotion itself becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Your happiness is more vast. And on the flip side, there's a balance to everything. What goes up must come down. Your sadness is also deeper. But because of that, you can appreciate that expansive happiness that much more. This practice is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak-minded individual. The thing is, you start your practice with intention and you follow it, and you won't be weak-minded, because you can't be.
Right.
And
that's why I like it.
You grow and you strengthen yourself.
Yes.
So
whether there's a spiritual plane or not, the material world you benefit from doing this kind of psychological work. There could be other ways to do it as well. But I do like this one. One thing I want to bring up and bring it back to with this is the female centric part of the actual women, and there's lots of men that are very much attracted to this as well, as they should be. It's not an exclusive to women thing. But the thing that's and I'm not an overtly like, oh my God, I'm a let's fight the patriarchy kind of guy and all that stuff. What I'm saying is that it is very obvious that the caricatures of witches is meant the same way that Napoleon is short through all history is from propaganda. It's basically Christian religion, and actually all the Abrahamic religions have basically said no to this. They've had a war. The Crusades, a lot of it was not just against
I have an opinion.
Islam. It was also against these pagans and destroying different versions of Christianity that were too pagan. So I guess, what is my question? Why do we deal with this weird... You see where I'm going, but why are we even here? Like... Witches aren't even close to what the Bible, or what Christianity paints them as. Well,
I think we're here because,
is it the propaganda just living and living?
We've grown as humans. We've advanced in science. We've advanced in our understanding of science and the world that we live in medicine. Our brains have expanded around concepts over the centuries that we didn't understand before. If you were to take a friggin' cell phone back to, 800 Common Era, they're going to think that's witchcraft and magic, okay? Something as simple as just a Bic lighter,
But they'll get over that real quick, though. They'll be like, okay, that's amazing, but...
All I'm saying is we have... What used to be magic is now commonplace.
Right.
We have no need as a society for the fear and oppression of organized religion. Now, some humans still require parameters because they have not advanced emotionally enough.
Fighting words.
I'm just saying they require that. There are individuals that require that. Because they have not gotten to that point yet. Doesn't mean they can't.
Right.
It means they just haven't.
It's scary to bust out of your parents' wishes in society.
It's the other thing I've realized is choices are scary.
Yes.
It's so much easier to be told, do this and don't worry about anything else. The moment somebody says, I don't know, they take the blinders away and you see the whole expanse around you and they're like, I have no idea where you should go. Why don't you just go and do your own thing? To a lot of people, that's scary. Choices are scary. They're intimidating. And that doesn't mean those people are bad. I don't want our listeners to think that that's what I'm saying, because that is not it at all.
Right.
Some individuals thrive if they are just pointed. They thrive there.
I think most,
and we need those individuals.
And I think most of us most of the time just want to be like, just show me what to do. God damn it.
Right. There's other individuals that can't thrive there.
Right.
We're all different, and we have different methods of learning and moving through life.
The problem is we have a hard time tolerating each other's
that's a problem.
differences.
That is a problem, because just because this person says or believes something different than this person over here doesn't mean either of them are wrong.
Right.
It doesn't.
They could both be wrong.
They could.
Likely are both wrong.
Well, that's being here on Earth and being human with these human brains of ours. We're likely wrong all the time. It's likely everything I've said is bullshit. But
Same.
it's the way that I understand and see the world.
Right. You're doing your best, and that's all.
Exactly.
We can ask of you.
When it comes to witchcraft, it's a fearful thing, and it's been made to be fearful. The original translation of the Hebrew Bible, there's debate here that the original translation of the Hebrew Bible stated. So let me rewind it a little bit. So there's a statement, and it's the one statement, it's the one verse that everyone always says.
Is it Leviticus or
it's
whatever?
Exodus. Yeah,
okay.
Exodus 22:18. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live."
Right.
That's in the King James version of the Bible.
Right.
Okay.
Which was edited many centuries later.
Well, by King James. King
Right.
James affirmed this. He
Possibly
approved
Sir
this
Francis Bacon.
version.
Yeah.
Now let's take a quick remembrance. Okay, King James. King James was the one who was afraid of witches. He actually interviewed them and persecuted them himself after he thought that witches stirred up a storm in the ocean when he was bringing his new bride over and almost sunk her ship. He was paranoid that they were trying to kill him for like 20 years. So King James was afraid of witches, and he actually approved the change from sorceress, I believe it was, to witch in his period of time. And when was that, King James?
It's like 1400. It's
think
somewhere
so.
near
I think so.
Shakespeare, but not quite.
So prior to that, I believe it was sorcerer or it was sorceress. Okay. That came from another interpretation, which was the original translation was Mekhashafa. Okay, I wrote this down. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's the Hebrew word.
Okay.
Mekhashepha. Mekhashafa. Okay. Now, there's two translations to English from that word. The first translation, which they moved forward with, the translation drills it down to basically to chant or to cut herbs. The word Mekhashafa.
Okay.
To chant or to cut herbs.
Both things a witch would do.
Right, but who else chants? Monks chant.
Yeah. Football fans.
Who else cut herbs? Cooks cut herbs.
Football fans.
Okay, so, but they got it from there.
Right.
But the most likely translation is referred to Mekhashafa. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Right.
To pharmakeia. Okay, so pharmakeia is almost a direct translation, which they didn't use.
Okay.
But it meant poisoner.
Oh, fuck me.
Okay, so essentially,
somebody that poisons a tribe has to die.
Yes.
And they turn that into
the original translation was supposed to be poisoner.
Well, it could be a poisoner of the mind, a poisoner of the spirit of society. That could be what
one who chants, cut herbs, and poisons.
I'm blaming King James because he sounds like a dumb
He's
shit.
the one that switched it to witch.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So for those that do follow the Christian Bible, witch is new. Witch came around the time of the witch trials.
Yeah.
And it was because King James was afraid of them, because he was afraid that they were going to take his power away.
Right.
Now, out of fear of losing control during this period of time, men had to hold on to all the control they had out of fear of women. Okay, let's not be foolish here. Women, even today, they carry a lot of power. They carry a lot of power just within themselves. They carry a lot of power because, for whatever reason, we're portals. We bring babies here.
Yeah,
you know, we bring other people to the planet.
You're a fucking wizard.
Also, any men out there, what are some of the stupid sayings they have out there? Happy wife, happy life.
Right.
I think that's fucking ridiculous, but it's a thought process. They're not
wrong.
There's so many of these sayings that people just flippantly say nowadays. But what it does is something as simple as happy wife, happy life. That means if that woman is happy, everything is right in the world. Do you know how much power that gives that female?
Part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if that were true, and men were afraid of women taking the power away, the best way is to make them seem evil, to make any of the females that use that power, that step up and go against the grain, make them evil, make them go against the religion, turn them into demons themselves.
Right.
And that's the best way. Now, that's what's happened for centuries. Witchcraft has been looked at as this evil thing. Most witches are looked at as women because although there were a lot of men involved in there too,
burned in the stake.
It was a political statement. It was an economic thing.
It's kind of right and left, right kind of shit.
Exactly.
Because obviously Christianity is there are various versions of it that are very good for women that have been like the women's rights champions actually throughout time. But if you really interpret the Bible, straight up, it is not nice to women.
That's the thing.
It's the opposite of witchcraft, where it's very much it's the patriarchal kind of thing, as people will say.
It's absolutely oppressive. It demonizes women. It oppresses them, makes them slaves
you're the original
and
sinners.
Cattle.
You're the original son
we're the reason everything's wrong in the world.
Exactly.
And so anytime a woman can take her power back and feel good about the fact that she is a female on this planet and follow a path that celebrates that. That is enlightening. It's fulfilling. And it brings meaning and peace to a woman's life. And a step further, understanding herself, understanding her psyche and how she reacts to things. That makes her even more powerful. And that's why I think witchcraft is so attractive to these women who may feel oppressed or victimized or weak.
And effective for these things that we talked about, for the material world mentality help. I think it's effective. It's been my favorite part, I think, of being a part of MRB is seeing young women, women of all ages actually, grow and explain to you how thank you for this, and I really feel a change in my life because of this. I mean, you carry a lot of great books and you have a lot of great information and you have a lot of resources for people to learn things, and that's really cool because that's really all that we want to do with our lives is get better at being who we are, get better at understanding where we're going and who we are, and that's, I think witchcraft is a way for women to take control, and men. But I mean, men have a lot more options, I guess, but not really, not in the same way.
Right.
So you're right. But I think, again, it's more attractive to women because there's really no options if you're a female. There are no religions that are. It
can appear that way. If you want an organized religion, you're fucked because you're just a peon. You're just you're a cockroach. Maybe not to this day and age, but I could be speaking out of school here too, but in my experience, I haven't found one religion out there that celebrates womanhood.
Right.
Women for who they are.
Right.
Not as a wife or as, a birthing thing.
Birthing unit.
Exactly. Or, something to trade for cattle.
Right. And again, I want
to own.
I do want to make it clear, though, too. I also recognize that it was Christianity, and it was a lot of Christians that were pushing for women's rights. For when the first wave feminism came into the world, those were I mean, there were a lot of secular people who were involved too, actually, but and they were pushing against a lot of Christians, but there were a lot of Christians that were fighting for that. And I don't know, man. I think religion is kind of keeping people from doing the right thing more so than not. I can't give Christianity credit for either of those things. It's the people that abolished slavery were Christians, and the people that fucking loved slavery were Christians, and it's all throughout the Bible.
Just
in various
like
forms.
Anything in this world, it runs the gamut. Nothing is either or. Nothing is right or wrong. Nothing is evil or good.
Especially with a Bible or a political ideology with so many claims. When
there's so many individual people involved.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as, we're too polarized in our thinking right now. I think we live in a very polarizing community.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. Just this as an example, you had to throw that idea in there, which should just be a given. Nobody is saying that Christianity is 100% bad and that it is just the bane of all things and terrible. Nobody.
I could be pushed to say something like that.
But nobody said that. But you still felt the need to clarify that not all of it is bad. And I've done the same thing in my speech, in my speaking tonight on this episode, because we are compelled to clarify that we are not speaking in absolutes.
Right.
And
I think pathetic, actually.
I think it's a valuable thing because so many think in absolutes.
Right.
And that's where
that's the pathetic thing.
But that's where the damage sits.
Yeah.
That's where the limitations sit. And in order to be a full human or to start down that path, got to get rid of that. First of all, that divisive thought, that black and white, nothing is black and white. There is a gray area and a balance to everything. Everything is natural. Nothing is unnatural on this planet, and everything is it's varying degrees of color. I mean, all the way down to the light spectrum. So there is no solid, only black and white. Get rid of that mindset and understand that there is a spectrum to everything.
Yeah.
And that's the first step to moving forward. And for us to be able to have a conversation, could you imagine if you and I stood on opposite sides, which we often do, and claimed that there is absolutely no room for anything between your ideology and my ideology. I don't want to know why I use those words, but
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Could you imagine if that's how we tried to communicate, that there was zero bridge there?
Right.
We're just shouting at each other over the fucking stream or the river or whatever. It was like, fuck you.
Right. That's what people are doing right now.
We would get nowhere.
Fuck you, Tony.
Hey, Alan. Fuck you.
Well, one of the things, and I tried to put this into one of the skits yesterday for SKATCAST, was and the example was like capitalism and communism. It's just information. People want to make things ideology. They want to be tribal about stuff, and they want to follow along with some sort of plan from smart people. Some other smart person or a deity made this thing. But what we're missing is that it's information.
Right.
Like if you're a right-wing Republican guy, like you're not supposed to know very much about Karl Marx. You're not supposed to know what the fuck he's talking about when inside, Das Kapital or Communist Manifesto. You're supposed to just believe it's the evil shit. And vice versa. You're not supposed to think that Ronald Reagan said a fucking smart thing one time in his life. Not one word did he say was good. And that's... But the thing is both of those places of information, Ronald Reagan's not equivalent to Karl Marx, but whatever, it's just information.
Right.
When I read Communist Manifesto, it wasn't like, I can't wait to be a commie. I can't wait to embrace all of this shit. It's like, no, what kind of information's in here? What did they find anything that's like universal, an axiom that we can't ever replace? Or is this all debatable shit? Is it all speculation? Is there some science here? It's information. Capitalism, the theories, the concepts behind it, it's just information. Witchcraft, all these people that are going out and trying new things, whether or not they can put it down on paper in a proper scientific study where we can rigorously test it, it's still information.
Right.
Like Aleister Crowley's not, you shouldn't just dismiss it because, well, I've never heard of that work and I don't care, blah, blah, blah. It's like there might be one nugget in there that's worth it for you as a person that can make your life make more sense or something. And that's what I found with all of these things. But instead of looking at things as information that you should probably just absorb,
right?
Maybe not own, don't buy the whole fucking cow,
right?
But just take a look at it and say, okay, that's there's some stuff in there. That's an intellectual thought. Blah,
right.
blah, blah.
I'm going to take this information. I'm going to set it aside. I'm not going to discard it. I'm going to set it aside for future use, just in case.
Right.
Maybe it'll apply somewhere. And I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, and that's why government is obsolete and why it can't work. I know that's a weird pivot, but that's why it can't work, is because it's dedicated to one or two ideologies, and so therefore it can't be part of this intellectual game that we're playing.
That is why organized religion can't work.
Is also true.
Because it's one or two ideologies.
It can't change.
And it can't change.
It can't admit that it's wrong. And it can't be, the scientific method cannot be applied. Imagine if we applied the scientific method to the very idea of government. How many times have we tested government as we've walked through the earth? We've had democracies, we've had republics, we've had all these things, and they all end up burning the witches. They all end up burning the public for reasons that are arbitrary and the will of a mob over the other mob. I think it is fascinating that I have been basically a student of theology in many aspects for many years, and you've been studying economics and human action and the things that you've studied. Dumb shit, yeah.
And we've actually we're on two different topics, but we're studying the same thing and we're coming to the same conclusions about two different topics.
Here we are.
That's fascinating.
Weird, huh?
Weird.
Well, it all comes down to our belief systems. Our belief systems drive us, right? So that's why ideology is dangerous. So if you decided, like, I'm done looking into stuff, just feed me the information I need and I'll just do it.
No, see, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's limiting. It's limiting, and there's no learning there.
If you're busy, if you've got 6 kids and they just are pain in the ass, and you got 15 things you got to do every day. I bet it's appealing. In the moment, it can be appealing. Right. And in the moment, it might be beneficial for that individual at that time. But that doesn't mean 20 years from now, it's still going to be beneficial. I'm willing to state right now it's not beneficial. You got to do it the hard way is the only way. And the most important thing you got is your brain. Right. And it's the thing that will get you through from the beginning to the end. So you have to take the time to do the right thing for your brain, I think, right? So that makes sense. Shortcuts don't always work, but it's so hard. It's easier to say that than to do it because the 6 kids and the fucking 18 hours at work and the Yes, but think if you were capable of doing it, even if it's tiny little increments daily, little 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there. If you continued moving forward that way, do you know how much of a badass you'd be by the time that last child was 18 and out of the house? No shit. You'd be a fucking badass. That's right. Just fall up. You'll be fine. We're always falling up. You're fine. Right. So witchcraft, holy fuck, we've gone all over the place with this. We really did. I hope that some of these ideas and opinions and some of the information that I put out there, I hope it made sense. Yeah. Visit us at amarab.com. You can find a whole bunch more things and plus a bunch of lovely smelling things that are made right here. Marby does all the kind of witch stuff that you'd be interested in. And we don't say that much here on SKATCAST, but we're definitely interested in you guys checking it out. Right. Monique does such a great job. Thank you. It is a fantastic operation too. You order something and it's fucking out. It is in your house before you know it. And high quality. Like I said, a lot of the stuff is handcrafted. She's an amazing human being. And and she has a lot of resources, links to Monique is respected quite well by quite a few people in the witch community because she's very respectful to all the people that you like. And there's a nice little circle of folks. Yeah, so, there is a cool little group. I love it. Yeah. I still got more questions, and this doesn't have a time limit on it. So, of all the different kinds of witchcraft, you've said what kind of witch you are as far as those kind of terms. So you're kind of more European and stuff. Would you say that you chose that because of your culture or because it seems like the closest to correct as far as, or the furthest from wrong from being woo or from not working like you'd like? I'd have to say that it's... Because you've tried most of these, I know that. Yeah, I've meandered through. The only way that I can make an educated choice or decision of following a path is to try it. Right. And so I tried these things. And then from there, the best way to follow a path is to, in my opinion, take the best parts of things and make your own. Right. And because it has all the things that you personally need. So that's what I've done. But... I do follow a lot of the European traditions. And there's several just in there too. It's not just Druidic. It's
well, see, and my practice is considered traditional European witchcraft.
And so that's kind of English based, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a new term. It's new. It was coined in 2004. It's a new term for a very, very old concept. The concept hasn't changed, but the terminology has.
Is that Hermetic?
To differentiate. Sabbatic.
Sabbatic.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and it was Andrew Chumbley, rest in peace. He's no longer with us. He passed away at a fairly young age. I think he was 34. A fantastic mind. Fantastic mind. Wrote some books out there. I've read a few. And he's there's a bunch more that I haven't. But anyways, he basically formulated this practice he didn't formulate it. He brought it to the surface and renamed it. So something that we could understand. Now, Sabbatic witchcraft is fascinating to me. Traditional witchcraft is basically the path that I do follow. However,
that's Harry Potter, right?
No, it's not. What I do involves a lot of what they call folk magic. So, folk magic is...
That's herbs and stuff, right?
It's herbs and rocks, stones, twigs, hair, furs, bones.
So it's like kind of the beginning of medicine and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And folk magic has a lot to do with what I was talking about, puppets, what they call sympathetic magic and taglocks and that sort of thing.
And again, puppets are kind of like voodoo dolls, right?
Yeah, somewhat, I guess, yeah. It's same concept.
Right.
Yeah. Trying to facilitate change. Now, I don't use puppets to hurt people. I don't. If I want to hurt somebody, I put them in the freezer. But I use...
Like the actual person? You
no.
Chop their head off, do the Jeffrey Dahmer shit? Jesus.
No.
You need Jesus is what this whole podcast is about.
Puppets, what I do when I work with puppets, it's usually for blessings or healings. Because the easiest way, if I can't be there to give a salve or to give a tea or whatever, the best way is to pray for that person. And any church-going person would say the same.
Right.
Pray for them. The best way to pray for them is to have an image of them, right? You see a picture and you pray for that person. You're looking at them and you're praying for them. All I'm doing is creating an item, and I'm doing the same thing. Although it changes once you look at the actual mechanics of it. They're praying to a God that they believe in. I am asking my spirits around me and what the religious people would call familiar spirits, spirits that I've become familiar with in one way or another for one reason or another. Either they're there in my life or I have called to them and brought them to me.
Or there's LSD in our water.
But I work in this way.
Right.
And and I'm not doing it. I'm not doing any of this stuff. What is happening is I'm just the conduit for the stuff to take place. That's it. It's not me. It's my team.
Right.
Of those that are around me that nobody else sees.
And that's going to have to be on the Amara B podcast, which will be coming soon. Yes. Very soon. I'm pushing for that because I think we'll have a lot of fun with that. You. I want to ask a couple more questions before I get to just have you away from the microphones and hang out with you and ourselves. Or we go to bed, one of the two. But if somebody was interested in this and they wanted to get into it, this isn't like something that you can just, here's Witchcraft 101. I mean, Wicca kind of has that. They have a book that's meant to kind of get you guided. But that's not witchcraft, as we've discussed. Monique and I have discussed this as owners of Amara B, where it's like, we want people to come to Amara B and be able to walk right into the path. But there isn't really a book.
No, I've had that question asked a lot.
That makes me happy because it's absolutely not an ideology at that point.
Right. Where do I begin? And
it can be, but there's a good sign that it's not.
In order to answer that question, because I get it a lot. I return it with another question. And I know people hate that. But in order to, and I'll let them know, in order to answer your question to the best of my ability, I need to know a little bit more about you.
Are you willing to eat babies?
So I'll ask them a little bit, what brought you here? What are you looking for? What practice have you done? Do you have any religious background? I mean, then there's these specific questions that I need to ask because I need to know their motivation. I'm not going to throw traditional witchcraft at somebody who has just come from the Catholic Church,
right? Because
that is the worst thing for them. They have to ease into that. What I would do is I would give them Wicca. I'm not going to give Wicca to somebody who is coming in from Strega and they want to learn something new because they're past that. So, you know, there is no witchcraft 101. This is how you begin.
Okay.
And oftentimes I won't be giving them a book. What I'm going to do is show them different blog posts.
Right.
And then ask questions and tell me how you feel about that. And then from there, did this help you at all? And from there, then I can ease down a path and find out which direction to point them in. Mm-hmm. So,
which is that's the issue. Is it's like I am attracted to this culture that I see as witch. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's from watching TV shows and movies or documentaries or whatever. Well,
the first thing I'm going to say is everything you've seen on TV, forget that.
That was one of my questions.
Forget that.
Let me ask this one. What's the most realistic, according to the community of witches that you're a part of? What's the most realistic TV show or movie that depicts witchcraft in any kind of way?
None.
Okay. Zero? Are there any that get like...
there's elements of it.
Take the supernatural stuff where an actual thing appears or this or that, you know, where it's a fucking fight with magic brooms and wands and shit. Mm-hmm. Is there any practices that you recognize in, say, Harry Potter or...
Yeah.
Maybe
there's a fuck ton of terminology.
Right.
There is... an underlying current of the occult and of witchcraft practice in all the Harry Potter movies.
Right.
But it's, like I said, about the Bible or the occult, you have to have had that experience and then gone back and looked at it again to understand it.
You have to be able to filter it properly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's to a layman or somebody who hasn't studied it, they're not going to see it.
So that makes me wonder, like, how much information about legit witchcraft did J.K. Rowling
there's a lot in
absorb there. Yeah, I wonder
there's a lot in there.
I wonder what she would call her. I think she's a secular atheist. She's an English person. I don't think you're allowed to be anything other than that at this point.
I think if I had to, I don't know, but if I had to venture a guess, I would say that she's probably somewhat on the traditional craft path with ceremonial side.
Yeah, I wonder
because
where
there's a lot of Latin in a lot of ceremonial in her writing. So, you know, she's probably, who knows, maybe she was a member of the Golden Dawn.
Right.
Maybe she was a member of some of that high magic, ceremonial magic, sorcery with her traditional background. Because that's possible. That's what I feel from that.
So what you're saying is Illuminati confirmed. For sure. Okay. So we're getting down to the bottom of this. So... we sell a lot of books, so take that in mind. Full disclosure, some of the books that you might recommend here are for sale at mrb.com. But let's say somebody wants to get into traditional witchcraft, just wants to start that, and we're telling you right now, you're saying it's kind of a difficult thing to just jump into from a certain perspective if you're a Christian or Catholic Christian.
Sometimes it can be. It depends on how... it depends on where you're at in your mindset. But yeah.
Well, what's a good book or two?
Well, if they're interested in traditional witchcraft, it's going to be Traditional Witchcraft by Gemma Gary.
Okay.
Gemma Gary is my favorite. I've got a few authors that I really, really respect and appreciate because of their knowledge and their writing style and their experiences. And Gemma Gary is one of them. She owns Troy Books. Amazing, amazing woman. She's awesome.
She has a podcast too, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have a podcast. Oh. She's been on podcasts.
Okay.
I work with her to get a lot of the books that I have on our website directly from her publishing house. But Traditional Witchcraft, is the one that I would start with. And then from there's several that she's written that you can branch off and expand and learn more.
What can you expect to get out of the traditional witchcraft book? What you're going in with nothing, what are you going to come out with?
You're going to come out with a basic understanding of your place in the practice. You're going to come out with a basic understanding
what
of
your potential could be, or what you might be good at.
Yes. You're going to have a basic understanding of how to move through the world. And they're very basic, but it's the thing is, the more you grow as a witch and the more you revisit that book, the more you learn.
Right.
Because your experiences will allow you to read something else there. Read between the lines. You'll learn a bit more. So she teaches a lot about the basis of the spiritual walk there. You're also going to learn a lot about the symbolism. You're going to learn about initiation. Why we use bones, why we use specific herbs. What the symbolism of light and dark actually means. There's a lot in that book. And then she expands in the other books that she's written. Another one would be Treading the Mill by Nigel Pearson, or Nigel Pearson, but it's spelled Pearson is his last name. Another one, fantastic writer.
And that's for traditional.
Yeah, it's another traditional witchcraft book. Very valuable.
What if somebody wanted to get an overview? Because let's say they don't understand necessarily maybe they're not English and that doesn't resonate with them, and the Celts and all that stuff. So what if they wanted to get an overview of all of the different kinds of witchcraft? Is there any kind of resource that would go into just some history and just kind of name all of the sects or groups?
Yeah, there's, a lot of... there's actually, and I'm trying to think of the name of it, there's an encyclopedia. So it follows the same pattern. There's an encyclopedia of demons, and there's an encyclopedia of the witchcraft practice.
Okay.
Totally different authors, totally different subject matter, but it's out there. And I don't know the exact name of it, but if you were to Google, you're going to find it.
They know how to do that.
Yeah, you're going to find it.
So there is that resource out there.
But it is a resource, but it is very minimal.
Okay.
So it's just giving you the basics.
Right. So that you can kind of find maybe one that makes sense to you if that's something you're interested in. Not that I'm trying to proselytize this, but I think it is interesting because it's in this weird place where we have competing religions that are kind of the mainstream stuff. And in my view, for me, and looking at the generations of young people, whether that's the parents' fault or the indoctrination's not working, whatever, it's boring. People are bored of these arguments, I think, at this point. But
I would like to.
History's filled with all of the people making those claims. Nietzsche said that too.
I'd like to clarify something here. So you have all of these different types of witchcraft, right?
Right.
All these different names and all these different ways and blah blah blah. The thing that I love about this is there are thousands of streams that lead to the same ocean. Okay. Right. So you can come from all these different directions, but you're going to end up in the same pool with everyone else at the very end, because everyone's working towards a common goal here, and it all ends in the same space. So
honor the dead, honor the alive.
But so basically you're going to end up in the same spot. The reason why there are so many different aspects is because there are so many different races. There are so many different continents. There's different plants, animals.
There's not that many continents.
Plants, animals, minerals, things to work with, ideas and traditions. But when it comes to the craft, it all leads to the same space. So like with the Strega tradition, basically, which is Italian witchcraft, the underlying current is identical to traditional witchcraft, but how you get there is different.
Right.
So anyways, I wanted to say that there's many different aspects, but it all goes the same place.
One question that I wish I would have asked you before this was, because I did a bunch of research on Russia several times when I worked for TimeSuck.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned there was that witchcraft and the occult and paganism in general, way more popular than in Europe. But I wonder what the numbers are in Europe and Russia and a few other places compared to what because the United States is very, very heavily one religion with many, many different sects.
Right.
And we have other religions, of course, but the populations just aren't that high. We have, 60, 70% people are Christian,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of skewed here. Like the United States is one of the few Western countries that's still quite religious. Most of the modern world has kind of, they're still religious. I mean, England has a head of state that's also the head of the church. And
right, but so, for all intents and purposes, they're secular, though.
Basically, yeah. And so I would wonder, because I think witchcraft falls under a secularism. I think that's what scares a lot of the traditional organized religions too, is that this will be the alternative. And partly I'm scared by it too, because it does seem like there's a lot of unruly stuff within the occult and the pagan world, and a lot of really woo-woo deluded, idiots.
There is.
I hate to be that guy to say that, because I'm an idiot too, but it's really bad. But it's really bad in Christianity. It's really bad in Islam.
Yes, it is.
It's really bad in
That's why you get
Hinduism.
These people driving trucks into friggin', buildings and shit.
So we suck.
Yeah.
But that's why, again, the reason why I can't do anything but support witchcraft in a sense, like I'm against credulity. I really am. I'm all about reason. But if we're going to choose to go clump together in some tribal way for a spiritual reason, I think women in general, and men too, men can be very attracted to this for reasons that have nothing to do with women, but it is a place where women have control to be the powerful source instead of subservient to a male force.
Right.
It's a place where even if you want to be credulous, as I guess I would put it, and put gods involved and have deities and things like that, you can make them female, and that's empowering to a person in your mind. It doesn't matter what society says. Like, that's something that will probably help you.
Well, I'm sorry,
and of any race, it can be of your race. It doesn't have to be this white lady or this. It's.
Well, I mean, you can go all the way back to, is it Sumerian for Inanna? Remember
I think so.
Yeah, was it Babylonian? Maybe it was Babylon.
Okay.
Inanna. So Inanna was a god. Right. She was a goddess. She's one of the original goddesses before God became a man. And that's way, way, way back pre-Christianity by, I don't know how many.
8,000 years.
So it's just, so Inanna was the creator. She was the mother. And so God, quote unquote God, has only been male for a short period of time. It hasn't been that long.
Right.
I mean, in our life, it seems like it's been fucking forever. But it hasn't
the whole time, really, for me.
Right. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been that long. So...
How quickly we forget.
I know. We do.
And it's not... the concept of God, however useful it might be on some level, it's obviously divisive, because there can be only one in these. It's really, there's a difference between polytheism and monotheism.
Oh, it's
in the major way that if there's only one God, what a problem. What an absolute problem in humanity. That makes our little blue ball in space this little sparkly bit of shit that's always sparking dumb shit.
Right.
Well, all the other planets are like, well, we got over that. Anyway, but like, at least with polytheism, it's like, what, you worship the tree? Fucking dork. I worship the fire hydrant.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay.
Right. Well, and
at least we can get along. We both worship a thing.
The thing is, you had mentioned something earlier, and you referred to me or my mindset as deism. And I don't know if I agree or disagree with that statement. I'm not sure. I do know that I don't look at God. I don't have a God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in a consciousness either. I believe...
A higher power.
I don't believe in a higher power. I believe in the creative source, whatever that is. It's neither male or female, good or bad. It's indifferent, doesn't matter. But it is a source of creativity.
Right.
Now, is that deism?
Deism, the idea of deism is, I think in a sense, yes. But no, like, I think deism is more around the idea of an actual, all-knowing thing that doesn't give a fuck.
Okay.
from what I understand of deism, you can think of people like, I think Thomas Jefferson was probably a good example of a deist, where he took the Bible and he took all of the supernatural things out of it. He rewrote the Bible and just took out all the miracles of Jesus and all of the talking snake, all the things that
all the symbolism that works with your subconscious.
Right. So basically, I think really what deism was a way to be an atheist in a time where it was very difficult to be an atheist.
Oh,
where you're like, I think there's a God, sure. But he doesn't there's no evidence that he gives a fuck about you or about what you want to do for dinner or what your child's going to do in college or fucking, if you get across the street, whatever. Your prayers don't matter to this thing.
Right.
That's what a deist is, I think.
Well, I agree with that, but I don't think it's a thing. I don't think it's a decision-making thing.
Right.
I don't think it's a conscious thing.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be all-knowing then. Maybe I obviously don't know enough about it.
I'm not sure.
I've never been interested in being a deist, but I know that.
Curious.
Yeah. But yeah, I basically think that God has all the power to create the universe, but doesn't care about you, is the deism.
Oh.
While I think, theism is absolutely a personal God that is if you pray to this God that has a plan for you and that, he will change the plan. And he will help you, and he's out there looking for you, and he's going to make it so there's no pain for you or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but the deism makes more sense. It's like, obviously he doesn't give a fuck because there's a lot of pain in your life.
Right.
He's not looking out. And if God was looking out for us, there wouldn't be cancer in babies and fucking... You know what I mean?
Right.
And if he could heal the sick, he could heal the amputees too. Have you ever seen a person grow an arm back?
Right.
Yeah. So when we give credit to God for like, he made that person well again. It's like that only counts for inside. What about that person was burned? Can he fix the burn? That seems maybe even easier than cancer.
Why did he allow the burn to happen in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
So the deism is for people that are I can't reconcile. I'm sorry. God's will doesn't make it okay to watch this baby die from bone cancer.
See, and I think honestly, deism is even a step further from where I'm at, potentially, because it sounds like it. I don't think of any type of consciousness entity. I just don't. I think of a creative element, I guess. Yeah.
That's almost like the Big Bang.
Very much so. Very much so, yes.
The end of a universe creates a new universe.
Right.
Who knows? The fact that we don't know and that we're so far away from knowing, even though, the Big Bang is a scientific theory, which means it's a highly tested hypothesis that is basically mathematically true, physically true. Right. We still don't know enough about it to be definitive. We don't know how it happened. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what that means. All that shit.
Right.
We know that it's possibly 1010, and that makes me think that we're in a computer. But then at that sense, then that means that there's a whole nother reality out there that has computers and people that work them and all that shit. And then all of the exact same questions exist there.
Well, that's just it. If this is a program, then we all as humanity have the capabilities or the opportunity, maybe not the capabilities, but the opportunity to hack the system.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, dude, right now, if we're in a simulation right now, we're in a simulation talking about the simulation to other members of the simulation who are going to think about being in a simulation, not knowing maybe perhaps that they're even in a simulation, that they're simulations themselves for my simulation. And then there's some stuff going on there.
Yeah, potentially. There's potentially...
What the fuck?
Somebody is alarmed on the other side of this simulation where they're like...
Basically, Neil deGrasse Tyson is probably Satan, is what I just said.
I am.
We went all over the place there at the end, but that was a lot of interesting conversationals.
Well, thank you for the great questions
about the witchcraft. I still have more. I still have a bunch. I know that there's not a lot of them that are close to... reality as far as witchcraft movies, but what's your favorite witchcraft movie?
Oh, Practical Magic.
Is it? Right on. Is it because it's a good movie, or is it because it's heartwarming? Or
it's a good movie, and at the time that it came out and it was released, that period of my life, I could deeply relate to one of the characters in the movie, and I just love it, and it's heartwarming, and it feels nice.
If you were going to talk to a young person that wants to be, male or female, that wants to be a practicing witch or warlock or wizard or whatever,
right.
The male terms don't sound very good. But what's a bit of advice? And then I have a follow-up question. But what's some advice you would give to somebody? What's some pitfalls that they've got coming their way? What's something to avoid?
Something to avoid.
But what advice would you give them, first of all?
Well, goodness.
Don't do it.
No, always do it.
Right.
Always do it. The advice that I would give them would be, you got to start at home. You got to start with yourself.
Get your shit together.
Yeah.
That's part of witchcraft.
You have to be able to have, first of all, if it's a young person, I would let them know, if you're drinking, quit drinking.
Okay.
If you're doing drugs, stop it right now.
Shit, I can't do that.
If you are find yourself as an insomniac, you need to first and foremost, basically find out why. Why are you an insomniac? Let's discover where let's start there. Or
maybe some therapy.
Yes, if they're depressed, we need to find out why. Let's start there. So you have to clean your own porch before you can move forward.
You see why I like witchcraft, guys, a little bit more than I like name a religion where they're like, hey, let's dig deep into your psyche and figure out what's going on with you before you start all of our belief stuff and all of our leaps of faith.
I could throw a book at them and say, start here, read, and they're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
And they're going to get discouraged, or they're going to follow a path they're lying to themselves, and they're not going to get the outcome that they're looking for, or they're just going to fall down the woo-woo rabbit hole, and they're going to become credulous, and they're going to believe anything, and that's the last thing that we need on this planet right now. We need more self-aware individuals.
Yes.
We need more individuals that are challenging their belief system and their ideology and understanding themselves. So that would be the advice. Insomniac, find out why. Depressed, find out why. Quit drinking, quit doing drugs. Clean up your porch before we move forward. And then I can guarantee you your life is going to be so much more fulfilling once we get past that.
Right.
Now you're ready to start learning some stuff.
Okay. Now, then where do they go?
Well, they move.
Advice after that. Say somebody's got they've got their shit together. They've gone to the therapist and they've figured out the non-drinking.
Okay.
They still smoke pot.
Right.
But they're not doing drugs.
Right. I'm talking heavy.
I know.
Detrimental.
I think everyone knows that at this point.
But so the next thing is, buckle up, because this is going to be a bumpy fucking ride.
Well, that doesn't sound like I want to do that.
I'm sorry.
Bumpy how? What's the first bump that's coming?
Well, it really depends.
People don't like you anymore because you wear all your goth clothes now.
No. That's not it.
Do you wait? The first thing is do you go buy a pointy hat and goth clothes?
God damn it!
It's not, is it? It's not that easy. Come on, you can't wear the uniform and then you're witch.
No, I can't answer that. I honestly can't answer what the next step is because it's so individual for each person.
Okay. See,
I don't know the pitfalls because they're also very personal.
I also like witchcraft because it's not easy to get into, just like this, because it's not an ideology that like, here's the pamphlet, here's the book, we meet on Tuesdays, we've got all the bullet points for you to copy. And I like that because then it's like, it's really just people exploring themselves in some way, trying to figure out what works for them. And what the fuck else are we doing anyway? Without witchcraft, that's what I'm doing, is trying to figure out ways to handle my brain properly so that I can be not a shitlord to people.
I would like to touch on one thing here. So a lot of people may be wondering, why? Why are we working on ourselves? What's the point? That's all this is? No, that's not all this is.
Right.
You work on yourself to get to know yourself, which you will never fully, truly know yourself in theory. But you're going to know where you're at now. And you're going to know where you're at as you grow, because you're going to continue being self-aware.
The things you really want to know are how evil you can be, how sad you can be. Go ahead.
Now, as you move forward, knowing yourself allows you to understand your emotions, where they're coming from, and why you feel the way you feel. Okay. Also, you have faced your fears that you have in this moment. You have looked at them. You know where they're coming from. You know what experience led you there, you know what they feel like. All right. So the reason why all of that is necessary is because intention is where the magic, quote unquote magic, is. It's with your laser focus. You cannot laser focus on something with a single, remember happiness, what we did with the sigil? You know how I said, not just what the word is, but what it means to you. Mm-hmm. Picture that in your head. Focus on it when you draw your sigil. When you have laser focus on one thing, let's just pick an idea. Okay. So basically, what I'd like to start with is, let's just say we all have had jobs. You know, we're all part of the workforce,
right?
And we want a better job, a better paying job than what we've got.
This is the best job ever.
Yeah, but
could pay better.
You know, and you find yourself in a situation where you want this job, and we've all known people that say, "I want a better paying job," but they don't seem to make the changes in their life to get a better paying job.
Right.
And you wonder, well, they keep saying they want this, but they're not actually doing anything about it. And I've found myself in that same situation in the past too, and that's where you have to kind of. Basically, you have to dig a little bit to find out why. So intention, I keep coming back to this idea of intention. Now, intention, you intend on something. Everybody kind of knows what it's like to focus on something, but the best way to explain intention is desire. You know, you've got a desire for something. Mm-hmm. Your desire is part of being human. To desire, to want, okay? Your desire has to be strong enough for something. Now, desire is a subconscious thing, too. So they say they want a better paying job, but they're not actually making the change to get a better paying job. Their desire just isn't there. They say they want it, but they're not working for it. So why is that? Oftentimes, the desire isn't for a better paying job per se. The desire is rooted in a fear of more responsibility. They're afraid. They want a better paying job, of course they do, but they're afraid of more responsibility. So because of that, they don't actually put in the effort to get the better paying job. What's at the bottom of that lack of desire for more responsibility? Oftentimes, people who, and they have a hard time admitting it, but individuals that fear a heavier load, either they're already overtaxed in their life, which, you know, overtaxed, overloaded, whatever it may be. If you keep digging, you find that they feel overtaxed because they want to be cared for. You know, they feel overburdened because they actually don't feel safe. They feel like they want to be taken care of. Maybe they're not getting the attention they need at home from their friends and family. Maybe they feel overburdened because their needs aren't being met. And that is the subconscious connection between desire. That's where if they're witching their way through, they're doing spells and shit to get the better paying job, but it's not working. It's because it's not really what their subconscious is focused on. Our subconscious fuels our desires. And if your subconscious is focusing on, I need to be taken care of, and your conscious is like, I want this better paying job, and in the middle, the bridge that's connecting those two is a fear of responsibility, it's never going to work.
Right.
So you're never going to unwant the things that you want. You can't. It's part of being human. You want it. The more you tell yourself you don't want it, the more you're going to bury that shit in your subconscious, the more you're going to want it. Okay, so that's why working on yourself is so important. Understanding your desires, understanding your innate focus, all right? And being able to be honest with yourself and say, yeah, I want a better paying job. And I'm just using these as examples, but right. I want a better paying job, but let's not be foolish. Can't handle the responsibility of a better paying job because my needs aren't being fulfilled at home. So the moment you're honest with yourself and you say, hey, husband, wife, children, mother, sister, roommates, doesn't matter. The moment you communicate your need or your desire for connection, your desire to be taken care of, to be loved, whatever it may be, the moment you communicate that, you've satisfied the desire, because you can't squash it. You have to make that desire, you have to fulfill it. You have to make it happen. So once you fulfill that desire, then all of a sudden, the doors have opened up and you're able to accept more responsibility on that bridge. And then you can go after that better paying job, and you'll actually be driven to get that better paying job. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So working on your subconscious, whether you're involved in witchcraft or whether you're not, is hugely important to opening doors to your future and to opening doors to the path that you desire to be on. But you first have to assess your subconscious desires, and you have to be honest with yourself and dig. And don't ever be ashamed of what you find, ever, because there is no shame in human traits. There's no shame in desiring something. There isn't.
Unless it's to wear the flesh of other people.
Well,
and a few other things in that vein.
Then if you dig, honestly, if you dig, you're not going to find that as the base desire. You'll
find a brain tumor probably in that person.
Well, you'll probably find a lack of acceptance.
Also a brain tumor.
If you dig, you'll find that, there's childhood trauma that has made them feel unaccepted or unlovable or unloved, and that's why they have to wear the skin of another human.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we don't need to psychoanalyze this imaginary person. I'm just saying this path has more physics and psychology and self-awareness and emotional intelligence than any other path that I've ever been on. It requires it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that it seems like there's a discipline that's required before you even start. And
absolutely.
That's really rare. Not to say that other religions don't require some sort of discipline.
Right.
All ideologies require hyper-discipline, actually. Mm-hmm. But this is a self-discipline that is psychologically required for humans to become emotionally mature.
Right, which is why I would tell the young adult, assess your depression, assess your insomnia, get to the bottom of it, find out why. Otherwise, nothing is going to work. Your intention will be skewed by desire.
Fucking A.
And your desire is buried. So let's find out what those desires are, and then we can move forward.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what...
I hope that made sense.
I think it did.
Okay.
Well, I have 1,000 more questions, but I think this will be for MRB at some other point in time, perhaps.
Okay.
Or maybe we'll address it again in the future if people have questions.
Maybe. Yeah.
info@scatcast.com. You know the drill. Patreon.com/scatcast. All that shit. You can find some dipshit files merch, all those things. Thank you to our trusted turd triad.
Yes.
Mr. Don the Shitbox Wizard. Mr. Chris the motherfucking Dookie Slayer of Discord. And Bodhi Sanyata, our quartermaster, and who we're going to use your research at some point very soon, I'm thinking.
Yeah,
We've got a couple.
I kind of want to put. He did a lot of research on one topic that is very exciting to me, and I almost think it would be really good to maybe not next week. I think we need a gory serial killer next week.
We do?
I think we do.
Okay.
I mean, we got a whole group of listeners out there that are like, what the fuck?
What's going on? Where's the gory serial?
Spoopy shit. So I think we're going to slip a dipshit serial killer in there, and then we're going to come forward with Bodhi's stuff.
Cool.
And you guys are going to love it.
Rad. Well, thank you to the Trusted Turd Triad and all of the Trusted Turd Council. Thank you to the Godhead for all the things that you guys do.
Yes.
And thank you to Alan Sweeting in the garbage disposal for making me hungry every day. And there's always a little kitty butthole on there. Not always, but almost. It's amazing. Wonderful community that's been built. And I have to say thank you guys here, since this is the first time I can really talk about Zachtober at its completion and stuff. And so I won't go too long, since this has already been a long podcast, but
we're going to cover a lot of this stuff in actual video.
Yeah, we'll do a video. But thank you guys for that. I watched a video that Dawn put together, and all of you guys contributed. Several people contributed to. It's in the shitbox, and it came at a time where I was I needed a little pick me up. I think I'd lost a lot. I'd put out a lot of energy in the week, and I was at my empty, and that refueled me really heavily. And it was just good timing and so sweet. And to be honest, I'm just thankful that I get to be part of your guys' lives. It's cool.
Oh, yep, me too.
Yeah, it's fun to have this little network here on this little corner of the earth, and this lovely audience. So coming from an audience that was amazing at Time Suck, this is also amazing. This is incredible. This is, to me, it's a very special thing. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right, enough of my silliness, and thank you for sharing all the things that you shared with us today, Mrs. Crypt Keeper.
Thank you for asking.
No, I wish I could have asked 10,000 more questions, because there's a lot to this stuff.
I'm always here.
But hopefully we figured out the differences between a few things, and we know how to do a sigil. Hopefully you guys did a sigil at home of happiness or something else.
I think my focus for this whole thing was to bring a bit of normalcy to witchcraft. Take a little bit of I don't want to take the mysticism out of it, because there is a lot in there just innately in the topic itself, in the folklore and all of that. And you can't take it away because it's part of what it is. But I kind of wanted to demystify a bit of the stories and the ideas about a witch that people may carry with them that are detrimental to or stopping them from learning about them or becoming friends with them.
Right.
You know, you're going to have your fucking assholes no matter where you go.
Right.
But the majority...
And ideology makes us all, even smart people, assholes. Even very empathetic people become assholes when they're ideological.
But the majority of the ones that I've ran into, harmless folks. Very interesting, very sweet. Yeah, they are.
Well, God bless every one of you. And when I say God, I mean Jesus God. And when I mean Jesus God, the version I'm talking about is the very powerful baby Jesus God.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say that.
Well, I'm not offended that you want to send me your blessings. Yeah. I appreciate your blessings.
Tots and
as
pears.
long as they're not laced with hatred and malfeasance.
You know, they might have had some of that. I don't know. All the people arguing about all the things, I hope you guys have peace. Yeah. I hope you guys just realize that, your farts smell bad.
Yeah.
And that's funny. And so does that other guy or gal that you hate. Their farts smell bad.
Everybody,
it's maybe not as funny, but it's still funny.
Everybody shits. Everybody stinks. Everybody
is insecure. No one knows the answer to any of the major questions.
Nobody has any, and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
No, not any Ayatollah.
We're all working. We're all trying to understand. Yeah, but none of us know.
Not a philosopher.
Nope. No one in the history of ever.
Nope.
Has had all the answers.
That's why we're all in a simulation. Listen to me, because I have the answer. And I'll talk at you in the future.
And it'll seem like the present.
Bye.
Bye.
Dipshit Files.
Bing bong.
Poop out of my butt face.
Your face.